listen while sleeping, and awaken the vision that sees beyond illusion. There is a quiet threshold between waking and dreaming, a place where the mind loosens its grip on certainty and the deeper currents of awareness begin to move. Ancient teachers spoke of this state with reverence. They believed that when the noise of the world fades and the restless mind grows still, something older within us begins to listen. Perhaps you have felt it before. A moment of stillness when the world seemed strangely transparent, as if reality were not as solid as it appears. A sudden sense that beneath the routines of daily life, there is another layer, something subtle yet undeniable, waiting patiently to be noticed. The world around you appears fixed and permanent. Walls, cities, identities, histories, all woven together into what we call reality. Yet somewhere inside, there remains a quiet suspicion that much of what we see is only the surface of something deeper. Tonight, as you listen, allow yourself to step gently beyond that surface. Not through effort, not through belief, but through attention. For thousands of years, seekers gathered in quiet chambers carved from stone, in temples illuminated by firelight and silence. They came not to accumulate knowledge, but to remember something they felt had been forgotten. The elders of those traditions often repeated a simple idea: truth cannot be forced into the mind, it can only be awakened. The words you hear tonight are not commands, and they are not lessons. Think of them instead as echoes, fragments of reflection meant to stir a deeper awareness already resting within you. Breathe slowly. Allow each thought to arrive gently, like ripples spreading across still water. In the quiet rhythm of listening, the mind begins to soften its boundaries. And when those boundaries soften, perception changes in subtle ways. Modern psychology has its own language for this phenomenon. Researchers have shown that attention shapes what we experience as reality. In one well-known experiment, observers focused so carefully on counting a series of basketball passes that many of them failed to notice a person in a gorilla suit walking directly through the scene. The figure was clearly visible, yet the mind simply filtered it away. The lesson was simple, but profound. We do not see everything that exists. We see what our attention allows. Ancient philosophers understood this long before laboratories existed. They described human perception as a veil, a thin layer of assumptions, habits, and expectations that quietly shapes what we believe the world to be. And like any veil, it can shift. Behind that familiar layer of perception lies something subtle, a field of awareness that does not belong to noise or distraction. When the mind slows, when the endless commentary of daily life begins to quiet, that deeper clarity becomes easier to notice. Perhaps that is why listening in this quiet state can feel different. As the world around you settles into silence, the mind becomes more receptive, less defensive, more curious. Thoughts move differently. Ideas travel deeper. Questions open spaces where certainty once stood. Some people describe this as intuition. Others call it insight, presence, or simple clarity. Whatever name we give it, the experience is strangely familiar, as if we are not discovering something new, but remembering something that was always there. You are listening now on Book Sounds Better You, a place where ideas are explored slowly, allowing the mind to wander beyond its usual patterns. Over the next chapters, we will explore the idea of what ancient traditions sometimes called the hidden light. Not a mystical force far away, but a quiet clarity that becomes visible when the mind looks beyond its own assumptions. A light not hidden by darkness, but by familiarity. Because the greatest illusions in life rarely appear dramatic. They appear ordinary. They blend seamlessly into everyday thinking until we no longer notice the veil through which we see. Yet once that veil begins to thin, even slightly, perception changes. And when perception changes, the world itself can begin to look very different. So allow the mind to rest. Let the rhythm of these words move gently through the quiet space between waking and dreaming. For the one who is listening now may not see the world in quite the same way by the time morning arrives. Chapter 1. The curtain between worlds. Have you ever felt it? That strange moment when reality seems thinner. Not broken, not unreal. Just slightly transparent, as if the world you see is only the outer skin of something deeper. Perhaps it happened in silence, late at night when the noise of the day finally faded, or in a fleeting second of déjà vu, that eerie sensation that you have already lived this moment before. Most people dismiss these experiences, but ancient thinkers did not. They believed such moments were not errors of the mind, but glimpses through what they called the curtain between worlds. A boundary so subtle that most people live their entire lives without noticing it. And yet, once seen, it becomes impossible to ignore. The strange truth is that human perception has always been limited. Modern neuroscience confirms that the brain filters enormous amounts of information every second. Of the millions of signals surrounding you right now, sounds, colors, patterns, movements, your conscious mind notices only a tiny portion. The rest is quietly erased. Reality is not missing. It is simply unseen. Imagine standing in a vast concert hall while wearing thick headphones. The orchestra is playing, the instruments vibrating through the air, but all you hear is a faint echo of the music. The melody still exists, but it reaches you softened, distorted, incomplete. Human perception works in much the same way. What we call the world is only a small translation of something far richer. Ancient traditions described this hidden layer in poetic language. They spoke of a living rhythm beneath matter, a deeper field of connection that gives form and meaning to everything we experience. To them, the visible world was not the whole story. It was merely the surface, a curtain. And like any curtain, it can move, sometimes only slightly. A sudden moment of insight that arrives without warning. A coincidence that feels too precise to be random. A quiet intuition that turns out to be right. These are the moments when the curtain trembles. Not dramatically, just enough to remind us that our understanding of reality may not be complete. Consider something simple. Have you ever learned a new concept, a word, an idea, a pattern, and suddenly begun noticing it everywhere? Conversations, books, signs, passing remarks from strangers. The world appears to fill with something that previously seemed invisible. Of course, it was always there. Your perception simply changed. And when perception changes, reality seems to change with it. The curtain between worlds is not made of distance or mystery. It is woven from attention, belief, and habit, the patterns through which the mind organizes experience. Every assumption becomes a thread. Every certainty tightens the weave. Over time, the curtain becomes so familiar that we stop realizing it exists. Yet the moment curiosity returns, something begins to shift. The mind softens its grip on what it thinks it knows. The world becomes slightly less rigid, slightly more alive. Details that once felt ordinary begin to carry unexpected depth. Not magic, not fantasy, just awareness widening its field of view. Ancient philosophers believed that the purpose of reflection, meditation, and contemplation was not to escape the world, but to see it more clearly, to allow the curtain to thin so that the deeper patterns of life could be noticed. Because behind the surface of things lies a strange realization. Nothing around you is truly still. Every atom vibrates, every living system pulses with energy. Even what appears solid is, at its deepest level, a dance of motion and probability. In that sense, the universe is less like a machine and more like a vast piece of music, and you are part of its composition. The reason most people never notice this is not because the truth is hidden. It is because the mind grows comfortable with the first explanation it receives. Comfort builds walls. Curiosity opens windows. Tonight, as you listen quietly, perhaps drifting between wakefulness and sleep, the mind enters a different state, a slower rhythm, a gentler attention. In that state, ideas often travel deeper than they do during the rush of the day. The curtain responds well to that kind of stillness. Not because you are forcing it open, but because you are finally pausing long enough to see it. And once you begin to notice the curtain, something remarkable happens. You realize it was never a barrier at all. It was only a habit of perception. And habits, once seen clearly, can begin to dissolve. The journey beyond the veil does not require you to leave this world. It only asks you to look at it again. More slowly, more carefully, more awake than before. Because the moment perception shifts, even slightly, the world you thought you knew begins to reveal something extraordinary. Not another universe, but a deeper layer of this one. And now that you've begun to listen, the curtain has already started to move. Chapter 2, The Purpose of the Veil. Clarity would be worthless if it were permanent. Imagine a world where every truth stood fully exposed from the beginning, every answer visible, every meaning obvious. There would be no curiosity, no discovery, no moment when the mind suddenly pauses and says, "Now I understand." Knowledge without distance quickly becomes invisible, the way a constant scent fades from awareness after a few minutes. The veil exists because awareness needs contrast. Even the simplest experiences prove this. A melody becomes powerful not because of the notes themselves, but because of the silence between them. Remove the silence, and the music collapses into noise. In much the same way, understanding becomes meaningful only when it emerges from uncertainty. That is the strange function of the veil, not to hide reality completely, but to soften it, the way morning fog softens a landscape. The mountains are still there. The rivers have not moved. Yet, the mist delays recognition just long enough for the moment of revelation to feel alive when it arrives. Psychologists see a similar pattern in how the mind learns. In experiments on memory, people who struggle briefly to recall information remember it far longer than those who are given the answer immediately. The mind seems to value what it discovers through effort. Difficulty deepens perception. This is why the veil does not act like a locked door. It behaves more like a delay, a pause between question and answer, allowing awareness to mature before the truth fully appears. And that pause shapes character. Consider how people often describe the turning points of their lives. Rarely do they speak about moments when everything was easy and certain. Instead, they recall periods of confusion, crossroads where the next step was unclear. Strangely, those uncertain moments often become the ones that sharpen perception the most. Not because confusion is pleasant, but because it forces attention to wake up. The veil works through that same principle. It slows clarity just enough for curiosity to arise. Without that delay, awareness would remain shallow, skimming across life without ever needing to look deeper. Nature seems to favor this pattern everywhere. Seeds remain hidden beneath soil before they grow. Photographs appear slowly as they develop in darkness. Even the human brain itself matures through stages, revealing its capacities gradually over time. Immediate perfection rarely produces depth. Gradual revelation does. Seen from this angle, the veil begins to look less like a barrier and more like a mechanism of growth, a system that transforms simple existence into meaningful experience. Because when understanding finally appears, it carries weight. A person who has navigated uncertainty often sees the world differently than someone who has never been forced to question anything. Awareness becomes sharper, empathy deeper, perspective wider. The delay itself becomes the teacher. This is why the veil does not need to be torn away dramatically. It thins naturally whenever attention deepens. A single moment of reflection can reveal patterns that were invisible before. A conversation suddenly makes sense in hindsight. A mistake reveals the belief that caused it. A quiet realization reshapes how the future is seen. Each of these moments is small, yet together they slowly alter the way reality appears. What once felt random begins to form patterns. What once seemed meaningless begins to carry direction. And gradually the veil changes from something that hides the world into something that reveals it layer by layer. The mind begins to notice that awareness itself is evolving. Not suddenly, but steadily, like fog lifting from a landscape at sunrise, revealing first the outlines, then the colors, and finally the full depth of the horizon. And the surprising discovery is this: the veil was never placed there to block understanding. It was placed there to make understanding possible. Chapter 3: The Illusion of Separation. Long before the mind begins dividing the world into me and everything else, life moves in a much simpler way. Breath enters. Breath leaves. The same air that fills your lungs now may have passed through forests, oceans, or another human being only moments ago. A single breath can travel across continents in days, across generations in years. Scientists estimate that with every inhale, you draw in molecules that once belonged to ancient forests, distant mountains, even the last breath of people who lived centuries ago. The body already knows something the mind often forgets. Nothing exists entirely on its own. Yet the moment awareness forms language, something subtle changes. The mind begins organizing reality into boundaries, names, identities, categories, distances. These distinctions are useful. Without them, navigation through daily life would be impossible. We could not speak, plan, or build anything lasting. But usefulness does not always equal truth. The divisions we rely on are often practical approximations rather than absolute separations. Physics offers a simple example. Every object that appears solid around you, a wall, a table, even your own body, is composed mostly of empty space at the atomic level. Atoms hold structure through fields of energy interacting with one another. What looks like separation is at its deepest layer, interaction. Consider something closer to experience. When you watch a sunset alone, the colors seem distant, almost unreachable, light fading over a horizon miles away. Yet those colors are not out there in the sky. They exist because your eyes interpret specific wavelengths of light and your brain transforms them into the experience we call color. The sunset happens partly in the sky and partly inside you. In that sense, perception itself is a collaboration between the world and the observer. This quiet partnership appears everywhere once you begin to notice it. Language, culture, memory, each of them shapes the way reality is interpreted. Two people can stand in the same room and experience entirely different worlds depending on what they notice, what they expect, and what they remember. The illusion of separation begins there, not as a mistake, but as a habit of interpretation. The mind draws lines across experience in order to understand it. Over time, those lines begin to feel permanent, as if they were built into the structure of the universe itself. Yet moments arrive that soften those boundaries. A conversation with a stranger who somehow understands you completely. A piece of music that seems to speak directly to your inner life. A quiet moment in nature when the usual sense of distance between you and the world briefly dissolves. These moments do not last long, but while they are happening, the idea of separation feels strangely less convincing. Many spiritual traditions tried to describe this phenomenon in their own language. Some spoke of unity, others of shared consciousness, others simply of connection. Each description pointed toward the same intuition. Beneath the layers of identity and difference lies a deeper continuity. Modern science hints at this as well. Ecologists studying forests discovered that trees exchange nutrients and chemical signals through underground networks of fungal threads. One tree can send resources to another that is struggling. Entire forests behave less like collections of individual plants and more like living communities. Life appears to cooperate far more than we once imagined. Even within the human body, the same pattern repeats. The cells that make up your organs are constantly exchanging signals, adjusting to one another, maintaining balance across billions of tiny interactions every second. If those signals stopped, the illusion of a separate, stable self would collapse instantly. Continuity sustains everything, and yet the feeling of being separate remains powerful. Perhaps because it serves a role. If every connection were constantly visible, individuality might disappear entirely. Experience would blur into a single undivided field. Distinction, the sense of being a particular person with a particular story, would lose its meaning. The illusion of separation creates the space where relationship becomes possible. Without distance, there could be no meeting. Without difference, no recognition. Without individuality, no act of compassion moving from one person toward another. Paradoxically, the appearance of separation allows connection to be felt. This is why moments of genuine understanding carry so much emotional weight. When two people recognize something true in one another, an experience, a fear, a hope, the invisible distance between them briefly collapses. For a moment, the illusion loosens, and something deeper becomes visible. It does not appear as a mystical vision or a dramatic revelation. Often it feels simple, almost quiet, the sense that the boundaries between lives are more permeable than they seem. That what we call others are not entirely separate from us. Breath flows between us. Ideas travel between us. Emotions move across conversations like currents beneath the surface of water. Connection is constant. Only awareness fluctuates. The illusion of separation, then, may not be an error to eliminate, but a condition to understand. It shapes experience the way the frame shapes a painting, creating edges that allow the image to be seen. Yet every so often, the frame loosens. In those moments, the world stops feeling like a collection of strangers and begins to resemble something else entirely. A vast network of lives observing one another. A single story told through countless perspectives. And once that possibility appears, even briefly, the mind begins to question the certainty of separation. Not rejecting it, but seeing through it. Chapter 4, The Hidden Light. Deep within the quiet architecture of your being, there exists a light that has never flickered, a presence so constant that the mind rarely pauses long enough to notice it, and yet it has accompanied every moment of your life, from the first breath that entered your lungs to the countless thoughts that have drifted across your awareness like clouds across an endless sky. This light does not belong to the sun, nor to flame, nor to anything that can be extinguished by darkness, because it does not burn in the way ordinary light burns. Instead, it reveals gently and patiently, like dawn spreading across a landscape that was never truly empty, only waiting to be seen again. Most people spend years searching for meaning somewhere beyond themselves, believing that clarity must arrive from outside, through success, recognition, knowledge, or the approval of others. Yet history quietly suggests another possibility, that what we seek most intensely is often what has been silently present within us all along. The hidden light is not something that must be created. It is something that must be noticed. Ancient teachers across many cultures hinted at this strange truth. They spoke of an inner radiance that survives every storm of experience, a steady awareness that remains even when thoughts become chaotic or emotions grow heavy, much like the deep ocean remaining calm while waves rise and fall across its surface. Modern science, though using a different language, points toward a similar mystery. Neuroscientists estimate that the human brain processes enormous streams of information every second, far more than conscious thought can possibly handle. Yet within that constant movement of signals, there remains a simple, quiet fact. Awareness itself continues observing everything that passes through the mind. Thoughts appear, linger briefly, and dissolve. Emotions rise, intensify, and fade. Memories surface like distant echoes, and then disappear again. Yet the ability to witness those movements rarely vanishes. It remains. That steady witnessing presence is what many traditions have described as the hidden light. Not because it glows like a lantern, but because it illuminates experience from within, allowing meaning to emerge from moments that might otherwise pass unnoticed. There are times in life when this inner brightness becomes easier to feel, though it rarely announces itself loudly. It often appears during quiet intervals, when the usual momentum of thought slows down just enough for awareness to expand slightly beyond its familiar boundaries. Perhaps you have felt such moments. Standing beneath a night sky so vast that the ordinary concerns of the day suddenly seem smaller than they did before. Listening to music that somehow touches something deeper than emotion alone. Or experiencing a silence so complete that even the simplest sensation, breath moving in and out of the body, feels mysteriously alive. In these moments, the hidden light does not suddenly appear. It simply becomes visible. The mind, usually busy translating reality into plans and judgments, briefly loosens its grip, and perception widens like a window opening into fresh air. What follows is rarely dramatic. Instead, it feels strangely familiar, as if awareness has returned to something it already knew but had temporarily forgotten. Consider how the human eye adapts to darkness. When you first enter a dim room, the space seems nearly black, yet after several minutes, shapes begin to reveal themselves, subtle outlines emerging slowly from what once looked empty. Nothing in the room has changed, only your perception has. The hidden light behaves in much the same way. When attention becomes quiet enough, it reveals that clarity was never absent. It was simply overlooked beneath the constant movement of thought and expectation. Life, however, often leads us through experiences that temporarily obscure this light. Stress, loss, uncertainty, and the countless pressures of daily existence can cast long shadows across the mind, creating the impression that awareness itself has dimmed. Yet shadows cannot exist without light. In fact, many people discover that their most meaningful insights arise not during periods of comfort, but during moments when the familiar structures of life begin to crack open. A disappointment forces them to question assumptions they once accepted without hesitation. A failure exposes patterns of thinking that had quietly limited them for years. In those moments, something unexpected occurs. The mind pauses, and through that pause, the hidden light begins to shine again. Not as a sudden revelation, but as a quiet understanding spreading gradually through awareness, much like sunlight filtering through clouds after a storm has begun to clear. What once seemed meaningless begins to carry depth. What once felt chaotic reveals patterns that were invisible before. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the world itself appears brighter. not because reality has changed, but because perception has begun to remember how to see. The hidden light does not demand belief, effort, or perfect understanding. It waits, patiently. Like a lantern placed inside a house whose windows have been covered for years, its glow remains constant even when the outside world cannot see it. And the moment those coverings begin to lift, through reflection, curiosity, or the quiet stillness that sometimes arrives when the mind drifts towards sleep, the light reveals itself again, not as something new, but as something ancient and familiar. The light you seek has never abandoned you. It has simply been waiting for you to notice that it was there all along. Chapter 5. The Eyes of the Soul. Long before the mind learns to analyze the world, there is another form of perception quietly moving beneath it. A way of knowing that does not arrive through sight, sound, or language, but through a deeper sensitivity that many people recognize only in rare moments of stillness. It is the strange awareness that sometimes appears when the noise of life falls silent, and something within you seems to notice more than your senses alone can explain. A place where understanding arrives without reasoning, where a moment, a person, or a landscape suddenly carries meaning that cannot easily be described. This kind of perception has been described throughout history in different ways. Some traditions called it intuition. Others spoke of inner vision. Mystics described it as the awakening of what they believed were the eyes of the soul, a symbolic way of describing the mind's ability to perceive essence rather than appearance. Physical sight is designed for survival. It measures distance, identifies shapes, distinguishes between threat and safety. It focuses on edges, boundaries, and movement because those details helped our ancestors navigate the world. But the deeper layers of human awareness do something different. They search for meaning. Consider how quickly people sense the emotional atmosphere of a room even before a single word is spoken. Within seconds, the mind detects tension, warmth, curiosity, or unease. None of these signals are visible in the usual sense, yet the body recognizes them almost instantly. We are constantly reading subtler information than our eyes alone can see. Psychologists studying human communication often note that a large portion of meaning in conversation comes not from the words themselves, but from tone, timing, and subtle expressions. A brief pause, a shift in posture, the quiet change in someone's voice can reveal more than an entire sentence. Perception is layered. The eyes observe form, but awareness interprets significance. The eyes of the soul begin to open when attention shifts toward that deeper layer. Not through effort, but through presence. Moments of genuine stillness often reveal this shift most clearly. Standing quietly before a vast landscape, listening to music that resonates deeply, or holding a meaningful conversation late at night when distractions have faded, these experiences often awaken a different quality of perception. The world looks the same, yet it somehow feels more alive. Colors appear richer. Silence seems fuller. Even ordinary details begin to carry a quiet intensity. What has changed is not the world itself. It is the depth of attention with which it is being experienced. Researchers studying attention have found that when the mind slows and becomes more focused on the present moment, the brain begins processing sensory information in more integrated ways. Patterns that previously went unnoticed become visible. Connections between ideas appear more easily. In other words, clarity increases when the mind stops rushing. Ancient contemplative traditions discovered this long before modern science began exploring it. They often described inner vision as something that emerges naturally when the mind becomes calm enough to observe without immediately judging or categorizing what it sees. The eyes of the soul, in this sense, are not supernatural. They are simply the mind perceiving reality with fewer filters. This deeper perception often awakens during emotionally significant moments. Times of beauty can open it. Times of loss can open it as well. When life becomes intense enough to break familiar patterns of thinking, awareness suddenly widens beyond its usual boundaries. Many people describe such experiences as moments of unexpected clarity. A realization arrives quietly, but unmistakably. A new understanding reshapes how past events are seen. Something that once seemed confusing becomes strangely coherent. The insight does not feel forced. It feels remembered, as if awareness has returned to a perspective it had always possessed but rarely used. The eyes of the soul function in that same way. They do not replace ordinary perception. They deepen it. A conversation becomes more than words. A place becomes more than scenery. Even silence becomes expressive, filled with subtle signals that the mind once overlooked. And the more attention rests in that deeper awareness, the more interconnected life begins to appear. Events that once seemed random begin to form patterns. Encounters with others reveal shared experiences beneath surface differences. Small details begin to carry meaning that would have been invisible before. The world grows richer not because reality has changed, but because perception has expanded. To see through the eyes of the soul does not require abandoning logic or reason. It simply means allowing awareness to move beyond immediate appearances, noticing the deeper layers of experience that exist alongside them. A gesture becomes an expression of intention. A silence becomes a space where understanding can grow. A moment becomes an intersection of countless unseen influences. Life begins to resemble a living conversation rather than a collection of isolated events. And as this deeper perception strengthens, a subtle transformation occurs. The world becomes less rigid, less divided, less defined by simple categories of success and failure, gain and loss. Instead, it begins to feel like a continuous unfolding, a network of experiences connected in ways that the analytical mind alone cannot fully map. The eyes of the soul reveal that connection gradually, not through dramatic revelations, but through quiet moments of recognition. Moments when awareness looks at the world and realizes it has been seeing only part of the picture. And now, slowly, the rest is beginning to appear. Chapter 6. The Mirror of Illusion. Reality behaves less like a solid wall and more like a mirror whose surface is constantly responding to the energy that stands before it, reflecting not only the physical world we see, but also the quiet currents of belief, emotion, and expectation that move beneath our awareness. If such a mirror existed in ordinary life, it would not show your face or the shape of your body, but something far subtler, the tone of your inner world, the quiet frequency of thought and feeling that moves through you even when you say nothing at all. Every belief would ripple across its surface. Every emotion would leave a pattern of movement in its reflection. In many ways, this is already happening. Psychologists have long observed that human perception rarely encounters reality in a neutral state, because the mind constantly filters experience through expectations that were formed long before the moment itself arrives. When someone walks into a room expecting hostility, their attention quietly scans for signals of tension, often overlooking gestures of kindness that do not match the expectation. When another person enters the same room expecting warmth, the opposite pattern appears. The environment has not changed, only the lens has. This simple phenomenon hints at something deeper. Experience is not merely what happens around us, but also how the mind participates in interpreting what happens. In that sense, the world behaves like a reflective surface that quietly responds to the signals we bring into it. Ancient teachers describe this idea in poetic language, suggesting that life acts like a mirror that reveals the inner landscape of the observer. When fear dominates perception, the world often appears filled with threats and obstacles. When curiosity leads attention, the same world begins revealing patterns of opportunity and connection. The mirror itself does not create the image. It only reflects what stands before it. And like any mirror, striking the reflection accomplishes nothing. If someone dislikes the image they see, attacking the glass will only distort the surface further. The only meaningful change occurs when the person standing before the mirror shifts position, adjusts the light, or alters the expression being reflected. Life follows a similar principle. Many people spend years attempting to force the external world into a shape that matches their expectations, believing that happiness will appear once circumstances finally align with their preferences. Yet time often reveals that the same frustrations return in different forms, because the inner patterns that generate those frustrations remain unchanged. The mirror continues reflecting them. This does not mean life is controlled entirely by thought, nor that external events are illusions created by the mind. Reality is far more complex than such simple explanations allow. Yet, it is equally clear that perception influences experience in profound ways. Expectations guide attention. Attention guides interpretation. Interpretation shapes response. and response quietly influences the direction of events that follow. The mirror is dynamic. Consider how quickly a shift in perspective can alter the meaning of an experience. A setback that once appeared as failure may later reveal itself as a turning point that redirected someone toward a more meaningful path. A difficult conversation may expose an assumption that had silently shaped years of misunderstanding. The event itself remains the same, but the reflection changes when awareness deepens. Ancient wisdom often suggested that the key to working with this mirror lies not in controlling every external detail, but in refining the inner quality of attention. When awareness becomes less reactive and more observant, the patterns hidden within experience begin to reveal themselves. Instead of immediately resisting what appears in the mirror, a person begins to examine it with curiosity. Why does this situation feel familiar? What belief might be shaping this reaction? What pattern has been repeating itself beneath different circumstances? These questions do not assign blame. They create clarity, and clarity gradually alters the reflection. Because the moment awareness sees its own influence on experience, something shifts within the system. The mirror becomes less distorted, less reactive, more capable of revealing what is actually present rather than what expectation once projected onto it. Over time, the world begins to feel less like a battlefield of unpredictable events and more like a responsive environment that constantly provides information about how perception interacts with reality. Blame softens, understanding grows, and with understanding comes a quiet form of power. The recognition that awareness itself can reshape the lens through which life is experienced. When perception becomes calmer, the mirror reflects calmness more often. When compassion replaces judgment, relationships begin to shift in subtle but meaningful ways. When curiosity replaces certainty, new possibilities appear that were previously invisible. The mirror has not changed its nature. It has only become clearer. Eventually, a deeper realization begins to emerge. The mirror was never separate from the observer in the first place. The world reflects the mind, even as the mind is shaped by the world, both participating in the same unfolding movement of experience. And once that understanding settles into awareness, the reflection begins to reveal something that was always present but rarely noticed. Not merely the patterns of thought and emotion, but the quiet light that has been shining through the mirror all along. Chapter 7: The Mist of Forgetfulness. There is a softness surrounding the beginning of every life, something almost tender in the way awareness arrives in the world without the weight of everything it once knew, as though consciousness itself had passed through a gentle field of mist where memory loosens its hold and the vastness of existence fades into a quieter, more intimate horizon. Without that mist, the story of a human life might never truly unfold. Imagine entering the world while still holding the full memory of eternity. Every experience already understood, every connection already known, every lesson already completed. Life would feel less like discovery and more like repetition, as though you had been handed the final page of a book before reading the first chapter. The mist of forgetfulness prevents that. It creates distance between what has been and what is about to begin, allowing experience to feel immediate, personal, and alive. Across centuries and civilizations, people sensed this mystery and tried to give it form. Some described it as a veil drawn across the mind before birth. Others spoke of a luminous fog through which the soul must pass, a passage that softens the brilliance of infinite awareness so that the fragile mind of a new life can gradually grow strong enough to encounter it again. Different metaphors, yet the same intuition persists. Forgetting is not exile. It is preparation. Modern neuroscience offers a curious parallel to this ancient idea. The brain is not designed to remember everything it encounters. In fact, its survival depends on the opposite. Each day, the mind receives immense streams of sensory information, yet only a small portion becomes memory. The rest dissolves quietly, allowing attention to move forward instead of drowning in endless detail. Forgetting, in other words, is essential. Without it, consciousness would collapse under the sheer weight of experience. And yet something always remains beneath that fog. Even though explicit memory fades, deeper impressions linger in subtle ways that cannot easily be explained. People sometimes feel an unexpected familiarity in places they have never visited before, or an instant sense of recognition when meeting someone for the first time. A moment unfolds with the quiet certainty that it somehow belongs to a pattern already known. Scientists often explain these experiences through the mechanics of perception and memory, suggesting that the brain occasionally misfires in the timing of recognition. But the feeling itself carries a peculiar quality. It does not feel like confusion. It feels like remembrance. Perhaps the mist does not erase awareness completely. Perhaps it simply dims it. Beneath the fog, fragments of deeper familiarity continue to shimmer quietly, guiding attention in ways the conscious mind does not fully understand. A person feels drawn towards certain paths without knowing why. Particular ideas resonate with unusual intensity. Encounters appear that feel strangely meaningful even when logic struggles to explain their timing. Life then becomes a slow movement through this mist. With every experience, the fog shifts slightly, revealing new shapes along the horizon. At first, the landscape appears uncertain, filled with contradictions and unanswered questions. Yet over time, a pattern begins to emerge, subtle at first, but gradually clearer. Moments that once felt random begin to connect. Encounters that once seemed accidental reveal quiet significance. A direction forms that was invisible when the journey began. What makes this process remarkable is that the mist rarely lifts through effort alone. The harder the mind tries to force absolute certainty, the more tightly the fog seems to close around it. Urgency narrows perception, while patience allows awareness to widen. Just as eyes adjust slowly to darkness, the deeper patterns of life reveal themselves only when attention becomes calm enough to notice them. This is why many of the most meaningful insights in life arrive unexpectedly, often during moments when the mind has finally stopped searching so aggressively for answers. A quiet walk, a conversation that lingers late into the night, or a moment of reflection after a long period of uncertainty can suddenly reveal clarity that once seemed unreachable. When that clarity arrives, it rarely feels like something entirely new. Instead, it carries a subtle sense of familiarity, as though awareness has rediscovered something that was always present, but temporarily hidden behind the mist. The traveler moving through the fog begins to realize that the journey was never about finding something entirely unknown. It was about remembering what had been softly concealed by the necessary and merciful mist of forgetting. Chapter 8. The Light and Shadow. A quiet mystery moves through every human life, though it often reveals itself only in moments when the world grows still and the mind softens its grip on certainty. It is the strange companionship between light and shadow, a relationship so subtle that most people notice it only after walking through both. At times, life feels bright and effortless, as though meaning stands clearly in front of you like a path illuminated by morning sun. At other times, the same path fades into dimness, and the way forward seems hidden behind a quiet fog of questions. Many assume that one state is truth and the other a mistake. Yet the deeper pattern suggests something different. Light and shadow do not arrive separately. They travel together. Anyone who has watched the sky at sunset has seen this quietly demonstrated. As the sun lowers, the world does not simply become darker. Instead, shadows lengthen across fields and buildings, revealing shapes that were invisible during the bright afternoon. The same light that once hid depth now reveals it through contrast. Something similar happens within the inner landscape of a human life. Moments of clarity often come after periods when understanding felt distant. A question lingers for months or years, then one evening, the answer appears so naturally that it seems almost obvious. A painful memory that once carried only confusion slowly transforms into a source of quiet wisdom. The shadow had been working patiently. Consider how the night sky itself teaches this lesson. During the day, the stars are still present above the horizon, yet their light remains invisible because the brightness of the sun overwhelms them. Only when darkness arrives do the distant constellations begin to appear, revealing a vastness that was hidden in plain sight all along. Darkness did not create the stars. It allowed them to be seen. The same quiet revelation often unfolds in human awareness. When life moves quickly, attention tends to skim across the surface of experience. Responsibilities, conversations, and constant motion fill the day with brightness that rarely leaves space for deeper reflection. But when stillness appears, sometimes through solitude, sometimes through uncertainty, the mind begins to notice things it once overlooked. A memory returns with new meaning. A small moment reveals unexpected beauty. A question once feared becomes the doorway to understanding. In those moments, shadow changes its character. What once seemed like absence begins to feel more like a gentle covering, similar to the twilight that prepares the sky for stars. The darkness does not erase the light. It invites it to appear in a quieter form. Many ancient thinkers describe this relationship through simple observation. They noticed that seeds sprout beneath soil long before sunlight touches them. They saw that night prepares the body for rest, so that morning can bring clarity again. Even the moon shines only because it reflects light that cannot be seen directly in darkness. Nature rarely separates illumination from shadow. Instead, it weaves them together into a rhythm. Within that rhythm, human awareness slowly matures. Moments of brightness inspire confidence and direction, while moments of shadow invite reflection and depth. Together, they shape perception in ways that neither could accomplish alone. The interesting discovery arrives when a person stops treating shadow as an intruder and begins to observe it with curiosity. Instead of asking why darkness appears, attention turns toward what it reveals. Sometimes it uncovers a belief that had quietly limited perception. Sometimes it reveals the depth of a connection that was taken for granted. Sometimes it simply slows the mind enough to notice the quiet presence of awareness itself. And once that shift happens, the tension between light and shadow begins to dissolve. They no longer resemble opponents in a struggle. They look more like partners in a dance. One reveals the surface of things, the other reveals their depth. Together, they form the full shape of experience. And in that realization, even the darkest moment carries a faint but unmistakable shimmer, the quiet understanding that the light has never truly left. It has simply chosen, for a time, to speak through shadow. Chapter 9. The Awakening of Vision. Have you ever paused in the middle of an ordinary moment and felt, for a second or two, that reality was slightly deeper than it looked? Not dramatic, not mystical in an obvious way, just a quiet sensation, as if the surface of the world had become thinner and something behind it had gently leaned closer. Maybe it happened while watching the sky at dusk, when colors seemed to linger longer than usual. Maybe during a long walk, when the mind finally grew tired of repeating its worries and fell silent for a moment. Or perhaps during a conversation, when the words stopped mattering, and you suddenly sensed the emotion beneath them more clearly than the sentences themselves. Moments like that often vanish quickly. But the question remains, what actually changed? Did the world become different? Or did perception loosen its grip for a moment? The human mind is trained to see efficiently rather than deeply. From childhood onward, perception learns to label everything immediately: tree, road, stranger, building. And once the label appears, the brain moves on. This habit makes life manageable. Without it, the mind would drown in detail. Yet that same habit quietly narrows vision. When you see a tree and immediately think tree, the mind stops looking. The living complexity of bark, wind, shadow, and movement disappears behind the simplicity of the word. So another question appears. What happens when the mind pauses before naming? Artists sometimes experience this when they stare at a landscape long enough that the familiar shapes dissolve into color and light again. Photographers describe a similar moment when they stop searching for a subject and suddenly notice how sunlight touches the edge of a wall or how reflections move across water. The scene was always there. Attention simply became still enough to notice it. Neuroscientists studying perception have found something interesting about this state. The brain normally filters enormous amounts of sensory information because it assumes most details are unnecessary. Yet when attention relaxes, during deep focus, meditation, or moments of awe, the brain's filtering system loosens slightly. More information enters awareness. The world appears richer not because it changed, but because less of it is being ignored. Perhaps this is the beginning of awakened vision. Not supernatural sight, just perception freed from hurry. Have you noticed how the world looks different when you are not rushing towards something? A familiar street suddenly reveals details you have passed for years without seeing. The pattern of light on the pavement becomes visible. The sound of leaves moving in the wind carries a rhythm you never heard before. Nothing extraordinary has happened, yet the ordinary becomes vivid. Another question quietly emerges. If perception can change this easily, how much of reality do we usually overlook? Think about how often the mind looks without truly seeing. You pass hundreds of faces in a week, yet remember only a few. You hear countless sounds in a day, yet notice only the loudest ones. The brain simplifies the world to keep life moving quickly. But speed hides depth. When awareness slows, something surprising begins to happen. The separation between observer and environment softens. Instead of standing outside the scene, you begin to feel part of it. The wind touches your skin, and suddenly it feels less like background noise and more like a conversation between body and air. The sunlight on a wall reflects the same warmth that rests on your face. Even silence begins to feel alive rather than empty. The world stops behaving like scenery. It starts behaving like a presence. People sometimes describe this shift after periods of quiet reflection. A person walking alone after a long day suddenly notices patterns that once seemed random. Encounters feel strangely timed. A decision that once felt complicated becomes simple because attention has finally dropped beneath the noise of competing thoughts. Life begins to feel less mechanical, more responsive. And then another realization appears, almost playfully. What if vision was never missing in the first place? What if the eyes were open all along, while awareness simply skimmed across the surface too quickly to notice what was already there? In that sense, awakening vision is not about gaining something new. It is about remembering how to look slowly enough for reality to reveal itself. The moment perception stops rushing, the world begins to glow in quiet ways that had always existed just beyond the edge of ordinary attention. And the most surprising part of that discovery is this: nothing magical had to be added. Only the speed of seeing had to change. Chapter 10: The Law of Perception. Softly, almost unnoticed, perception begins shaping the world long before the mind realizes it is doing so. The landscape around you may appear fixed and solid, yet the experience of it moves constantly, bending through the quiet atmosphere of your own awareness like light through mist. The mountains remain where they are. The sky holds the same clouds. Yet what the heart receives from those images changes with remarkable ease. The ancient thinkers often hinted at this with a simple observation. The world does not reveal itself exactly as it exists, but as it is received. Perception becomes the doorway through which reality enters consciousness, and every doorway has its own shape. A traveler carrying worry may walk beneath a brilliant sunset and barely notice the color of the horizon. Another traveler, moving through the same evening with a calm mind, may pause and feel the sky widen around them like a quiet cathedral of light. Nothing in the sky has changed, yet the experience of it has transformed completely. This subtle exchange between awareness and reality unfolds continuously. Each thought, each quiet belief, even each unspoken expectation becomes a gentle tint placed over perception. Like colored glass catching sunlight, the mind refracts the world before presenting it to you. Fear dims the spectrum. Curiosity widens it. Gratitude softens the edges of experience. None of these emotions rearrange the outer world itself, yet they shape the meaning that rises from it. Psychologists have noticed this pattern in the simplest moments of daily life. When a person expects difficulty, the mind becomes alert to every obstacle along the way. When someone carries patience or openness, the same environment begins to reveal possibilities that would otherwise remain hidden. The environment remains unchanged. Perception quietly edits the story. For centuries, philosophers described this phenomenon as a mirror of consciousness, suggesting that life often reflects the tone of awareness that meets it. Not because reality obeys human thought like magic, but because attention determines which parts of reality become vivid and which fade quietly into the background. In this way, perception behaves less like a camera and more like a painter. The world provides the canvas, but awareness chooses which colors become visible. A small shift in attention can redraw an entire landscape. A moment that once appeared frustrating may reveal an unexpected lesson when seen with patience. A delay that once felt meaningless may later appear as perfect timing when the mind looks back from a calmer place. The event remains unchanged, yet perception reshapes its significance. As this understanding begins to settle into awareness, something subtle relaxes within the mind. Instead of reacting immediately to every circumstance, attention becomes curious about how it is seeing the moment itself. The question quietly appears: what lens am I looking through right now? With that awareness, perception softens. The rigid outlines of judgment loosen. The need to control every outcome fades slightly. Life begins to feel less like a series of obstacles and more like a flowing landscape that responds to the tone of attention moving through it. This shift does not demand effort. It grows naturally when awareness slows down enough to notice itself. Just as water reflects the sky most clearly when it becomes still, perception reveals the depth of reality when the mind grows calm and unhurried. Thoughts continue to pass. Emotions continue to move, yet the lens through which they are seen becomes clearer. In that quiet clarity, the world begins to appear subtly luminous again. Not because reality has changed, but because perception has returned to its natural openness, like a window wiped clean after years of dust. And through that window, the same world reveals something it had always carried beneath its surface: a gentle harmony between awareness and experience, where the act of seeing quietly participates in the shape of what is seen. Chapter 11. The Inner Sun. Deep inside the quiet center of your being, something steady continues to glow whether you notice it or not. It does not flare like a flame, and it does not flicker when circumstances become uncertain. It is more constant than that, more patient. If the mind were a sky filled with shifting weather, this presence would resemble a sun hidden behind the clouds, unchanged, waiting for the sky to clear. Most people spend years searching for light outside themselves. They look toward inspiring teachers, sacred buildings, distant mountains, or the silent brilliance of the night sky, believing that somewhere beyond their reach lies the illumination they are missing. Yet many of those same traditions quietly suggested something different. The light being sought was never truly elsewhere. It had always been closer than breath. The inner sun is not something dramatic or mystical in appearance. It reveals itself in quieter ways. Sometimes it appears as a calm presence beneath restless thoughts. Sometimes as a gentle warmth in the chest during a moment of gratitude. At other times, it shows itself through an unexpected clarity that arrives when the mind finally becomes still. Nothing new is created in those moments. Something simply becomes visible again. Meditation practices across cultures have long described this experience in simple language. When attention settles and the constant stream of thinking begins to slow, awareness becomes less scattered. Beneath the movement of thoughts, a steadier layer of consciousness becomes noticeable, silent, observant, and strangely luminous. This is often what the old texts referred to when they spoke of turning inward. Not escaping the world, but noticing the quiet source of awareness itself. Emotions may still move across the mind like passing weather. Anger may gather for a time. Worry may form and dissolve. Joy may appear like sunlight after rain. Yet beneath these changing conditions, the deeper presence remains untouched. Clouds may hide the sun. They never extinguish it. Anyone who has watched the sky during a storm understands this easily. Dark clouds can cover the entire horizon, and for a moment it may seem as though daylight has vanished. But the sun continues shining far above the storm. Eventually the clouds shift, the light returns, and the sky opens again. Inner awareness follows the same rhythm. Thoughts and emotions may obscure it temporarily, yet the light of awareness itself remains unchanged. When the mind grows calmer, the brightness appears again almost immediately, as though it had been waiting quietly behind the surface all along. Many ancient meditation schools taught students to experience this directly rather than merely believe it. Practitioners would sit in stillness for long periods, allowing attention to settle gradually inward. At first, they encountered restlessness, wandering thoughts, and the ordinary noise of the mind. But after enough patience, something subtle would begin to shift. The mind would grow spacious. Awareness would feel steady. And within that quiet space, a gentle warmth sometimes appeared. Not a physical heat, but a sense of clarity spreading through perception, similar to the way sunrise slowly brightens a landscape. The light had not been created by effort. It had simply been uncovered. People who spend time near someone living from that inner clarity often notice something unusual as well. Conversations feel calmer. Silence becomes comfortable rather than awkward. Even without words, the presence of such a person carries a sense of steadiness that others can feel. Not because they are trying to impress or persuade, but because the inner sun is shining unobstructed. Children sense this naturally. Animals often respond to it as well, approaching people whose attention feels calm and safe. It is less about personality and more about coherence, the quiet harmony that appears when thoughts, emotions, and awareness move in the same direction. Anyone can rediscover that harmony. Sometimes it begins with a simple pause at the beginning of the day, closing the eyes for a moment, breathing slowly, letting attention settle in the chest or the center of the body where the rhythm of life is already moving quietly. With each breath, the mind grows softer. With each moment of stillness, the inner light becomes easier to sense. It may appear at first as nothing more than calm, but even that calm carries a subtle brightness, like dawn spreading across the horizon before the sun itself becomes visible. This is the quiet invitation of the inner sun. It does not demand attention. It simply waits. Even during periods of sadness or confusion, it remains present, much like morning light waiting behind a mountain ridge. When awareness returns to stillness, the glow becomes noticeable again, reminding you that beneath every passing emotion, there remains something steady and warm. And gradually, a deeper recognition begins to form. The light within you is not separate from the light within anyone else. It is the same awareness looking through countless eyes, the same quiet radiance that burns within every mind, every living heart, every star suspended in the vast darkness of space. The more clearly this inner sun is felt, the less urgent the search for illumination becomes. Because what once seemed distant and mysterious begins to reveal itself as something astonishingly simple. The light you were looking for had been shining from within all along. Chapter 12. The Keeper of the Veil. Somewhere within the quiet architecture of the mind, a watchful presence stands guard. It does not announce itself loudly, yet its influence touches nearly every decision, every hesitation, every moment when you approach something unfamiliar. It is the part of the mind that learned long ago how to protect you. This silent guardian is often called the ego, not as an enemy, though many people misunderstand it that way, but as a structure shaped by experience. From the earliest days of life, it begins collecting memories, lessons, and warnings. Each difficult moment leaves a small imprint. Each fear teaches the mind how to avoid danger next time. Gradually, a system forms, one that watches carefully over the boundaries of what feels safe. In its own way, the ego is loyal. It builds walls from stories that once helped you survive. Ideas about who you are, what the world allows, what risks must be avoided, and where certainty feels strongest. These stories become familiar pathways through the mind, and over time, they shape the way perception itself moves. The veil between illusion and truth is often woven from those very stories. Not because they are malicious, but because they were built during moments when protection seemed more important than discovery. The mind prefers what it already knows. Familiar ground feels stable, even when it quietly limits what is possible. And so the keeper stands at the threshold. Whenever awareness begins to wander towards something larger or unfamiliar, the guardian reacts. Doubt appears. Questions arise. The mind becomes restless, offering reasons to step back toward what is certain. This reaction can feel like resistance, yet its origin is simpler than that. It is caution. Imagine a child standing at the edge of a forest they have never entered before. The forest may hold beauty, open paths, and sunlight filtering through tall branches, but from the child's perspective, it is also unknown. The instinct to hesitate appears naturally, even if the forest itself carries no danger. The ego behaves in a similar way. Whenever awareness approaches something that could dissolve the old boundaries, a new understanding, a deeper silence, a wider sense of identity, the guardian grows alert. Its task has always been to preserve the familiar structure of self. Yet something interesting happens when awareness responds with patience instead of struggle. If the ego is treated as an enemy, it becomes stronger, tightening its grip on the stories that define identity. But when awareness simply observes it, without judgment or hostility, the guardian begins to soften. The resistance reveals itself as fear rather than authority. Ancient teachers often describe this stage of growth using the image of a gatekeeper standing before a hidden doorway. The gatekeeper does not exist to block the path forever. Instead, it appears to test readiness, ensuring that whoever approaches the threshold has developed the awareness needed to move beyond it. The ego performs a similar function. It asks quiet questions each time awareness approaches the unknown. Are you certain? Are you safe? Do you understand what lies beyond the familiar self? When these questions are met calmly, something shifts. Instead of reacting automatically to the guardian's warnings, awareness begins to listen more deeply. The thoughts that once commanded immediate obedience become objects of observation. The stories that once felt permanent reveal themselves as interpretations shaped by past experiences. Gradually, the keeper recognizes that awareness has grown. The walls it built from memory and caution are no longer needed in the same way. What once protected now simply defines the boundary of an old identity. At that moment, the guardian does something surprising. It relaxes, not because it has been defeated, but because its purpose has been fulfilled. The same mind that once insisted on certainty begins to open into something wider, like a door that was always capable of swinging both ways. Beyond that doorway lies a different quality of silence, not empty or cold, but spacious. Thoughts still appear, emotions still move through awareness, yet they no longer feel like rigid definitions of who you must be. They pass through the mind more gently, like reflections moving across calm water. The space the keeper guarded begins to reveal itself. And what it was protecting turns out not to be danger at all. It was vastness. Silence can feel unsettling at first, because identity dissolves slightly within it. The familiar labels that once defined the self grow softer. Yet within that softness, something deeper becomes visible, a presence that is not limited to any single story about who you are. Awareness itself. From that perspective, the keeper of the veil begins to look different. It was never standing outside the truth, blocking the path with hostility. It was simply the structure of identity itself, built carefully over time to protect a fragile sense of self. Once awareness matures enough to see this clearly, the boundary changes. Fear loosens its hold. The guardian and the gate reveal themselves as part of the same mind that now steps quietly beyond them. And with gentle surprise, you realize that the path was never truly blocked. The one who stood at the gate and the one who now walks through it have always been the same awareness, discovering its own vastness step by step. Chapter 13. The Shadow of Fear. Fear moves quietly through the mind, often so softly that its arrival feels almost natural. It does not always appear as panic or alarm. More often, it takes the form of hesitation, a gentle tightening in the chest, or a thought suggesting that perhaps now is not the right time to step forward. At first glance, this voice seems protective. It reminds you of risks, of past disappointments, of the fragile balance that keeps life feeling stable. In many ways, fear learned its role early. Long before deep reflection or understanding, the mind discovered that caution helped it survive. Every warning became a lesson, and every lesson slowly formed a pattern of protection. Over time, those patterns began to feel like truth. Yet fear carries a curious quality. It tends to appear not when life is quiet and familiar, but when something new begins to emerge. A possibility appears that was not visible before. A path opens that the mind has never walked. A quiet understanding begins to grow inside you, and suddenly fear is there, not loudly but firmly, standing just inside the doorway of change. Seen carefully, this pattern reveals something important. Fear often marks the boundary between what is known and what is expanding. It gathers around the edges of transformation, the way mist gathers along the surface of water before sunrise. Mist looks dense from a distance, but when you step into it, it dissolves into air. Fear behaves in a similar way. The mind imagines it as something solid, something powerful enough to stop movement entirely. Yet when awareness meets it gently, without struggle, its shape begins to soften. The trembling energy inside it slowly changes form. Anyone who has walked through a forest at night knows this experience. Shadows stretch between the trees, and the path feels uncertain. Every sound seems amplified. But when the morning light returns, the same forest appears calm and open. The shadows vanish not because the forest changed, but because the light allowed the eyes to see clearly. Fear fades through the same quiet illumination. The moment awareness pauses instead of resisting, the shadow begins to reveal what it was hiding. Often it hides a simple truth. Something within you is ready to grow beyond its old boundaries. Many people discover this only after they have moved through a fear they once believed immovable. The step that seemed impossible becomes ordinary once taken. The voice that warned you to remain small loses its authority. What remains is a calm realization. Fear was never trying to stop you. It was showing you where the edge of your present understanding stood. Nature reflects this rhythm constantly. Before a storm, the sky grows heavy and dark, yet the rain that follows clears the air in a way that sunlight alone cannot. The deepest night arrives before the horizon begins to glow with morning. Darkness prepares the way for light. Fear prepares the way for expansion. When awareness begins to see fear through this lens, the relationship changes. Instead of fighting it or obeying it completely, the mind learns to observe it. The trembling energy that once tightened the body becomes something softer, almost like a signal pointing toward unexplored ground. The shadow no longer feels like an enemy. It becomes a doorway. And beyond that doorway lies the quiet realization that the light you thought was missing has been waiting patiently, just beyond the place where fear once stood. Chapter 14. The Test of Doubt. Doubt rises when the ground of certainty begins to loosen beneath the mind. It does not always arrive as confusion. Sometimes it appears as a quiet hesitation, a pause between one understanding and the next. What once seemed clear suddenly feels incomplete, as though the picture you trusted is slowly dissolving into something wider. Many people fear this moment. Certainty feels comforting. It creates the sense that the world is stable, that the path ahead is already mapped. When doubt enters, that stability trembles. The mind searches quickly for reassurance, hoping to rebuild the walls that once held everything together. Yet doubt does not come to destroy truth. It comes to test whether what you hold as truth can breathe. Imagine a traveler walking across a frozen lake. As long as the ice feels solid, each step is taken without thought. But if a crack forms beneath the surface, the traveler suddenly becomes aware of every movement. The body slows, the senses sharpen, attention deepens. The crack has not ruined the journey. It has awakened awareness. Doubt performs a similar task within the mind. It interrupts automatic certainty and invites you to look again. Beliefs that were accepted without question begin to shift under closer attention. Assumptions reveal their fragile edges. What once felt permanent becomes something you are willing to examine. This examination is not weakness. It is the beginning of deeper sight. Many of history's most transformative insights began in precisely this way. A question appeared where confidence once stood. An explanation that satisfied generations suddenly felt incomplete to someone willing to doubt it. The simple act of asking again opened doors that certainty had quietly sealed. Doubt clears space. And in that space, perception grows wider. You may notice that doubt tends to arrive just before an inner shift. The ideas that once shaped your understanding begin to lose their weight. The language you use to explain the world no longer carries the same certainty. Something inside you senses that a larger pattern exists, though it cannot yet be fully seen. This stage can feel uncomfortable. The mind dislikes standing between answers. But the soul often works most deeply in that space of not knowing. When the mind releases its grip on fixed conclusions, awareness becomes receptive. The world begins to appear less like a collection of solid answers and more like a living field of unfolding meaning. Ancient teachers sometimes describe this moment as standing before a gate. The gate does not open through force or argument. It opens through patience. If you remain present with the question long enough, the need for immediate certainty softens. Curiosity replaces tension. The mind becomes still enough to listen to something deeper than thought. In that stillness, insight begins to emerge, not as a loud revelation, but as a quiet alignment that feels unmistakably true. The understanding settles naturally, the way a piece of music resolves into harmony after a moment of tension. The doubt that once felt threatening becomes understandable. It was never trying to lead you astray. It was loosening the old structure so that something clearer could appear. Without doubt, belief can become rigid and fragile at the same time. It depends on the illusion that nothing will ever challenge it. But belief that has passed through doubt carries a different strength. It no longer depends on blind certainty. It grows from experience, reflection, and awareness. Looking back, many people realize that their deepest insights were born in the moments when they were most uncertain. Doubt did not erase their understanding, it refined it. And when the fog of questioning finally lifts, what remains is not simply an answer. What remains is a clearer way of seeing. The mind becomes quieter, less defensive, more open to the subtle intelligence moving through life. You recognize that doubt was not the enemy of faith. It was the fire that shaped it. Through uncertainty, perception sharpens. Through questioning, awareness deepens. And the seeker who once struggled to believe begins to see directly, standing calmly where doubt once stood. Chapter 15. The Light Behind Pain. Pain has a way of appearing like a shadow that lingers longer than the light that cast it. Sometimes it arrives suddenly, like a crack through the quiet surface of life. Other times it settles slowly, almost invisibly, weaving itself through days and nights until you begin to wonder why it has come at all. In those moments it can feel endless, as though sorrow has wrapped itself around the heart and refuses to loosen its hold. Yet pain rarely appears without a deeper current moving beneath it. Behind its sharpness lies something quieter, something that does not belong entirely to suffering. Pain draws the attention inward the way a distant bell draws a traveler toward its sound. It gathers the wandering mind and gently forces it to return to the hidden rooms of the soul. There, something waits. What seems like darkness often hides a strange illumination. Pain is rarely the absence of light. More often, it is light that has been folded inward, concealed beneath layers of resistance and memory. It presses against the walls of the heart, asking to be noticed, asking to be felt completely. When the mind fights it, the pain grows louder. When the heart listens, it begins to change. Anyone who has watched a storm knows that the darkest clouds often hold the heaviest rain, and the rain itself clears the air in ways the sunlight alone cannot. Pain behaves in a similar way within the inner world. It washes through places that have remained closed for too long. Tears become a kind of quiet cleansing. Each one removes a thin veil from perception. What once felt numb begins to feel again. Sensitivity returns slowly, and with it a deeper awareness of life itself. This is why pain so often accompanies awakening. The soul uses it the way a lantern uses flame. The fire burns, but it also reveals. Through discomfort, the hidden parts of the self come forward, not to punish, but to be seen. Ancient healers understood something about this process. When someone carried deep sorrow, they were not always told to escape the feeling immediately. Instead, they were guided to sit within it, to breathe through it, to allow the pain to unfold its own message. Because inside every wound lives a fragment of light. At first, it is difficult to believe this. Pain feels like breaking, not illumination. Yet something unusual happens when the heart stops resisting it. The sharp edges begin to soften. The emotion that once felt overwhelming slowly reveals a quiet center, and in that center, something luminous begins to appear. The pain itself becomes a passage. Like fire refining metal, it removes illusions that once felt necessary. Ideas about control, permanence, certainty all begin to dissolve in the heat of honest feeling. What remains is something simpler and stronger: awareness. The mind may call this transformation suffering, but the soul recognizes it as refinement. Pain carves openings in the heart that comfort alone could never create. Through those openings, understanding enters. Compassion deepens. Wisdom grows silently in the spaces where resistance once lived. What once felt like destruction slowly reveals itself as a hidden form of creation. Mystics have often spoken of this paradox in simple language. They say the wound is where the light enters, not because pain itself is sacred, but because the openness it creates allows something sacred to be seen. Through sorrow, the soul rediscovers its own depth. In time, the memory of suffering changes shape. What once felt unbearable begins to carry a strange meaning. You look back and realize that the moment that seemed like the end of everything was also the moment that opened a deeper awareness within you. The darkness was never empty. It was waiting to reveal what the daylight alone could not show. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the heart begins to understand that even pain carries a hidden radiance. The light behind it was always present, quietly waiting for the moment when you would turn inward and see it shining through the shadow. Chapter 16, The River of Memory. Beneath the quiet surface of your thoughts, something older than memory continues to move. It flows silently, almost imperceptibly, like water traveling beneath deep earth. You may not hear it with the ears, and yet sometimes you feel its presence. A faint pull in the heart, a subtle stirring in the mind, as if something within you is remembering a place you cannot quite name. This hidden current is the river of memory. Not the memory of ordinary events, but the deeper remembrance the soul carries across time. It moves through the unseen layers of awareness, carrying fragments of truths once known, moments once lived, and wisdom that waits patiently to be rediscovered. Most of the time, the mind cannot see this river. Life on the surface is loud. Thoughts move quickly, days pass in a blur of activity, and the quiet signals of the soul become difficult to notice. Yet the river never stops flowing. It continues beneath the noise, steady and patient, guiding the deeper rhythm of your journey. Occasionally, its presence reaches the surface. A dream arrives that feels strangely familiar, as though it belongs to another time. A coincidence appears so perfectly timed that it feels almost written. A sudden knowing arises without explanation, gentle yet certain, guiding you toward a choice you did not expect to make. These moments are ripples from the river. They touch the surface briefly, then disappear again beneath the mind's ordinary movement. The world calls them chance or imagination, but something in the heart recognizes their deeper origin. For the river does not speak in words. Its language is sensation, symbol, and quiet recognition. It communicates through feeling rather than explanation, guiding you not with commands, but with subtle resonance. A place may feel strangely familiar. A path may feel quietly right before you understand why. It is the soul remembering its own direction. Long ago, seekers believed this river flowed through every human being. They spoke of it as a living stream of awareness, carrying the essence of all experience across lifetimes of growth. Not every detail returns, but the deeper truth remains. The quiet imprint of understanding left behind by every moment the soul has touched. In rare moments of stillness, the river becomes easier to sense. When the mind grows quiet and the body softens into silence, awareness begins to sink beneath the restless surface of thought. The deeper waters appear calm, luminous, almost timeless. Something begins to rise. Not a memory in the ordinary sense, but a feeling of recognition. The sense that something you encounter has been known before. A place, a voice, a thought, or even a simple moment of peace may carry the strange warmth of familiarity. It feels like remembering without remembering. Ancient traditions once taught seekers to enter this river deliberately. They sat in stillness, breathing slowly, imagining a stream of light moving gently through the center of the body. With each breath, the current seemed to grow clearer, washing away layers of distraction and forgotten tension. Gradually, the inner world became quieter. In that quiet, something remarkable often happened. Life itself began to reveal patterns. Encounters felt meaningful. Timing felt guided. What once seemed random began to resemble a kind of unfolding story written beneath the visible world. The river was guiding them, but it never rushed. The current reveals only what the soul is ready to receive. Some memories return as inspiration, lighting the mind with sudden clarity. Others appear as emotions that ask to be understood and transformed. Even mistakes find their place in the flow. Nothing is wasted in the river of memory. Every sorrow becomes a deeper current of compassion. Every challenge feeds the greater stream of awareness. The past does not disappear. It becomes part of the movement that carries you forward. Sometimes the river grows stronger. Dreams deepen. Coincidences multiply. Emotions rise like waves against the shore of awareness. These moments can feel mysterious, even overwhelming, yet they often signal that the current is clearing the path ahead. Old debris is being carried away. If you struggle against the movement, the waters feel turbulent. But if you relax into the flow, something beautiful begins to happen. The current becomes gentle guidance, and the effort of searching begins to fade. Remembering becomes natural, and one day, in a quiet moment of recognition, the understanding arrives softly. The river was never something outside of you. It was always moving through your own awareness. The memories it carries are not distant stories from another life. They are reflections of the same timeless presence that lives within you now. In that realization, the journey changes. You are no longer a traveler trying to follow the current. You are the river itself, flowing endlessly through the mystery of remembering, returning again and again to the quiet truth that has always lived within you. Chapter 17. The language of dreams night has a way of opening doors the daylight keeps closed. As evening deepens and the noise of the world slowly fades, the body begins its quiet descent into rest. Muscles loosen, thoughts grow softer. The mind, which all day has tried to organize reality into clear shapes and explanations, finally releases its effort to control everything it sees. In that gentle surrender, something subtle happens. The familiar world dissolves for a while, and another landscape begins to rise within you. A world not built from logic or daylight, but from images, feelings, and quiet symbols that move with a strange kind of intelligence. This is the realm of dreams. Here the soul speaks a language older than words. A place may appear that you have never visited, yet it feels deeply familiar. A figure may approach whose face you cannot fully see, yet you sense that you know them somehow. A path may unfold before you, leading through forests, rivers, or hidden rooms that seem to belong to a story your waking mind cannot quite remember. Dreams rarely explain themselves. Instead, they reveal meaning through feeling. In the language of dreams, ordinary things become living symbols. A closed door may represent a decision waiting quietly in your life. A wide river may carry the weight of emotion moving through the heart. Even a stranger who appears briefly may reflect a hidden part of yourself asking to be recognized. The dream rearranges the pieces of waking life in order to show something deeper beneath them. What matters most is not the story the dream tells, but the resonance it leaves behind. Sometimes you wake with a quiet sense of peace, as though something inside you has been gently healed. Other mornings, you carry a strange uneasiness, a feeling that the night revealed a truth the mind is not yet ready to understand. That lingering emotion is often the true message. Throughout history, people have sensed that dreams are more than random images drifting through sleep. Ancient cultures treated the hours of dreaming as sacred territory, a time when the deeper layers of consciousness could move freely, unburdened by the structure of daily identity. In early temples and places of quiet retreat, seekers sometimes slept within sacred spaces, believing that dreams could carry guidance or insight. When they awoke, they wrote down what they had seen, not because every dream contained prophecy, but because the symbols of the night often reflected the hidden movements of the soul. Even now, many people recognize this pattern in their own lives. A person might dream of crossing a bridge shortly before making a life-changing decision. Another might wander through an unfamiliar house, only to realize later that each room reflected a part of their own inner world. Dreams become a mirror of transformation. What the waking mind pushes aside, the dreaming mind explores without hesitation. Emotions that remain unspoken during the day may appear as vivid scenes during the night. Old memories return, disguised as landscapes or faces that seem to belong to another time, and sometimes the dream goes even deeper. In certain moments of sleep, awareness seems to travel beyond the ordinary limits of the mind. Time behaves differently there. Past and present blend together. Encounters feel meaningful, even when they defy explanation. You may meet someone who feels like a teacher. You may stand before a place that radiates quiet wisdom. You may hear a sentence spoken in the dream that stays with you long after waking, echoing through the day like a message carried across distance. These moments are not always dramatic. Often they are subtle, almost fragile. Yet they carry a quality that ordinary thoughts do not, a sense of quiet truth. During these hours, the mind releases the identity it carries through the day. The name, the history, the constant effort to define who you are slowly fades into the background. Awareness becomes lighter, freer. In that freedom, consciousness gathers pieces of understanding scattered across your experiences. Emotions are processed. Memories are rearranged. The deeper self reflects quietly on the path you are walking. By morning, the images may fade, but something inside you has shifted. A fear may feel smaller. A decision may appear clearer. A new sense of possibility may rise gently where confusion once lived. Because the dreaming mind continues working even when the waking mind rests. And slowly a deeper realization begins to emerge. Waking life and dreaming life are not separate worlds. They are simply different layers of the same vast field of awareness. One moves through daylight and action, the other through symbols and quiet insight. Together, they form a single unfolding experience. Dreams are not illusions meant to deceive you. They are translations, subtle attempts by the deeper self to communicate with the waking mind. And each night, as you close your eyes and the world grows silent again, that ancient language returns, whispering through images and feeling, reminding the soul of truths it has never truly forgotten. Chapter 18. The Hidden Teachers. Not every teacher arrives in sacred clothing or speaks from a place of ceremony. Many appear quietly, without announcement, moving through the ordinary fabric of life where few people think to look for wisdom. Some arrive as heartbreak that softens the walls around the heart. Some appear as strangers whose brief presence leaves an unexpected imprint on the mind. Others come disguised as small failures. Those quiet moments when something falls apart just enough to reveal a truth that had been carefully hidden beneath pride or certainty. The universe rarely presents its teachings directly. Instead, it places them within the everyday world, waiting patiently for awareness, mature enough to notice what lies beneath appearances. Every encounter carries a form of instruction, though the lesson may not be visible at first. Every difficulty contains a kind of curriculum, unfolding slowly through experience rather than explanation. Life itself is a classroom, though the walls are invisible and the lessons are written in events rather than words. Often the most influential teachers are the ones who seem to stand against you. The person who challenges your patience, the voice that questions your certainty, the experience that disrupts the image you held of yourself. At first, such encounters feel uncomfortable, even unfair. Yet beneath that discomfort lies something unexpected. They are mirrors. Through them, hidden parts of yourself begin to surface, beliefs you never examined, wounds you never acknowledged, strengths you did not yet trust. The reaction they awaken is not simply about them. It reveals something within you that has been quietly waiting to be seen. When the instinct to defend softens into curiosity, something remarkable begins to happen. The encounter changes its meaning. What once felt like conflict becomes reflection, and reflection slowly turns into understanding. The universe rarely teaches through punishment. It teaches through reflection. Nature has always carried the same quiet form of guidance. The wind moves across the landscape without resistance, bending branches yet never holding them in place. The mountain remains steady through storms that rise and fade across its slopes, embodying a kind of stillness that does not need to prove its strength. The river continues its journey with patient persistence, flowing around obstacles that would stop a more rigid force. Each element demonstrates something subtle yet powerful. To walk outdoors with attentive awareness is to enter a living temple. The rustle of leaves becomes a quiet sentence. The rhythm of water over stone becomes a passage of instruction. Even the shifting light between branches forms patterns that speak of balance, movement, and time. Long before human language appeared, the earth was already teaching. Its wisdom simply required silence to be heard. At times, the most profound teacher arrives not as an event, but as the absence of one. Life pauses. Movement slows. Plans dissolve. The mind begins to feel the unfamiliar space where activity once filled every moment. At first, the stillness may appear empty, even uncomfortable. Yet within that pause, something deeper begins to unfold. Without constant distraction, awareness gradually turns inward. Thoughts settle. Feelings that once rushed unnoticed through the body begin to surface gently, like reflections appearing on calm water. In those quiet spaces, the soul itself becomes the teacher. It points softly toward what you already sensed but never fully trusted. The hidden teachers rarely speak aloud. Their language is timing, experience, and presence. Ancient traditions often described learning in a similar way. Students were not judged by how much they memorized, but by how clearly they could perceive what was already unfolding around them. Could they recognize wisdom in ordinary moments? Could they hear guidance in a simple conversation, a child's question, or the laughter of someone passing by? The masters understood something subtle. Awakening does not require leaving the world. It requires seeing it clearly. When that recognition begins to grow, the pattern of your life slowly reveals itself. looking back, moments that once seemed random begin to form a quiet design. The friendship that ended may have opened the path to a deeper connection with yourself. The opportunity that vanished may have redirected you toward a truer direction. The delays that once felt frustrating may have protected you from choices that would not have served your growth. What looked like obstacles often become doorways when seen from a different distance. Nothing was wasted. Every step contained a form of instruction. And so, as you move forward through the unfolding path of life, something gentle begins to change within your awareness. The eyes grow softer. The heart becomes more receptive. You begin to notice how guidance appears everywhere, sometimes through kindness, sometimes through challenge, sometimes through the quiet pause between one chapter of life and the next. The universe rarely raises its voice when it teaches. More often, it whispers through experience, through timing, through the living rhythm of events. And when awareness becomes calm enough to hear those whispers, every face, every storm, every unexpected moment begins to reveal itself as part of the same quiet instruction. At that point, the classroom disappears, because you have finally recognized the teacher that has always been present within everything. Chapter 19, The Thread of Light. Even in the hours when life feels uncertain, when the mind grows tired of searching and the heart begins to wonder whether it has wandered too far from its center, something quietly remains. A single continuity, invisible yet unwavering. It moves through every chapter of your existence like a fine strand woven through fabric, subtle enough to escape notice, yet strong enough to hold everything together. Long before your first memory and long after moments you believed would break you, this quiet strand has been there. This is the thread of light. It winds through every lifetime of experience, through dreams, through silence, through the hidden pauses between one heartbeat and the next. It is the quiet bridge between the person you believe yourself to be and the infinite source from which that life quietly arises. And though the mind may forget it during seasons of doubt, the thread itself never forgets you. Even in moments when the world feels scattered, when hope seems thin and distant, the thread continues to glow softly beneath the surface of awareness. It hums quietly beneath despair, like a distant warmth beneath winter ground, reminding something deep within you that the story is not finished. Perhaps you have felt it before, a small resilience that appears when you thought you had no strength left, a calm breath that arrives in the middle of confusion, a quiet hope that refuses to disappear, even when circumstances suggest it should. That gentle persistence is not random. It is the thread of light, keeping you connected to truth even when the path feels unclear. It does not pull you forward with force. Instead, it guides softly like a current beneath still water. When you begin to move with compassion rather than fear, the thread brightens. When kindness replaces reaction, another filament of light joins the weave. Each moment of awareness strengthens the connection. Gratitude nourishes it. Presence feeds it. And every time you remember the deeper nature of who you are, the thread becomes more luminous. Mystics of earlier ages spoke about this quiet connection with reverence. Some described it as a silver cord, an invisible link between the human body and the eternal field of life itself. They believed it could never truly be severed, not even in sleep, not even in death. During sleep, they said, the thread carries awareness gently across unseen realms. And when morning returns, the same luminous connection draws consciousness back again, anchoring it softly into the rhythm of earthly life. In this way, you are never truly separate from the divine. You are suspended within it like light held inside crystal, radiant, continuous, quietly supported by something far greater than the mind can fully explain. At times, the thread may feel distant, as though buried beneath the noise of everyday life. Responsibilities, worries, and distractions can cloud the quiet signal that once felt so clear. Yet even then, the thread remains exactly where it has always been, patient, steady, alive. To sense it again requires very little effort. Often it returns the moment awareness grows still. When you close your eyes and allow your breath to deepen, you may feel a faint warmth beneath the ribs, a soft vibration, almost like the memory of light itself. Follow that sensation gently. With each inhale, the connection becomes stronger. With each exhale, the noise surrounding it fades. Soon the thread reveals itself again, not as something distant, but as a living presence quietly moving through your awareness. When your life begins to move in harmony with that subtle current, something remarkable unfolds. Synchronicities appear more often. Encounters happen at meaningful moments. Paths that once seemed blocked begin to open with surprising ease. This is not coincidence. It is coherence. Your inner frequency aligning with the deeper rhythm of the universe itself. When awareness remembers its belonging, the world begins to respond. Flow replaces struggle. Guidance appears without effort. And if ever the path grows uncertain again, the thread remains ready to answer. A single quiet sentence spoken inwardly can awaken it once more. I am still connected. Those words resonate through your awareness like a tuning fork, gently vibrating the thread back into clarity. Even in grief, even in confusion, even in moments when life feels chaotic, the thread responds immediately. Because light never abandons. It only waits to be recognized again. Wherever awareness returns, the thread brightens. Wherever presence deepens, it glows more clearly, guiding you gently back toward the center of your own being. And eventually, another realization begins to unfold. The thread does not lead you somewhere else. It was never pointing toward a distant destination. Instead, it is a living continuum, a spiral of remembrance connecting every version of you across time, linking past, present, and future into a single luminous pulse. And when that understanding settles softly into the heart, something within you relaxes. Because the thread you believed you were following was never outside you at all. It was the quiet essence of your own light, shining patiently through every moment of your life. Chapter 20. The Law of Resonance. Everything in existence moves with a quiet vibration, a subtle pulse that travels through the fabric of reality long before the mind gives names to what it sees. From the vast turning of galaxies suspended in deep space to the delicate motion of atoms hidden within matter, an endless dialogue is unfolding everywhere at once, carried not through language, but through tone. The universe is not silent as it often appears. It is alive with resonance, a continuous exchange of energy that flows between all forms of life and matter. This hidden harmony is what many traditions have described as the law of resonance, the quiet principle suggesting that energy naturally aligns with what carries a similar tone. In the same way that one vibrating string can cause another nearby string to tremble in sympathy, life responds to the frequency that surrounds it. The world, in this sense, does not arrange itself according to what we merely wish for in passing thoughts, but according to the deeper vibration we consistently embody. The universe listens less to the words we speak and more to the subtle field of emotion and awareness that moves beneath them. Every thought carries a faint hum, and every feeling releases a gentle signal into the invisible atmosphere around us. Most of the time, these signals pass unnoticed by the thinking mind, yet they quietly shape the way experiences begin to gather and unfold. When the inner world becomes saturated with fear or tension, the outer world often seems to echo that same unease. Circumstances feel heavier, possibilities appear narrower, and encounters reflect the same unsettled tone already moving within. But when awareness settles into a state of calm or gratitude, a different pattern slowly begins to emerge. The rhythm of life softens, conversations feel more open, and opportunities appear with surprising ease, as though the surrounding world has begun to recognize a different melody. Reality, in this sense, behaves much like an orchestra responding to the music already being played. The outer world adjusts itself to the tone that is sustained within the inner life. Raising one's resonance, however, is not a matter of struggle or forced effort. It is less about striving towards something distant and more about remembering what has always existed beneath layers of distraction. Gratitude clears the quiet static that clouds perception. Presence restores the natural tone of awareness. Forgiveness gently retunes the heart where tension once lived, allowing the deeper rhythm of life to become audible again. As the inner vibration steadies in peace, life begins to rearrange itself with remarkable subtlety, almost as if the world has suddenly recognized the signal you are carrying. Ancient teachings hinted at this understanding long before modern language tried to describe it. In certain traditions, healers were told that the most powerful way to influence reality was not through command or control, but through embodiment. To invite light into the world, they first learned to live from light, To call forth love, they allowed love to shape their own presence. The universe, they believed, cannot resist reflection. It mirrors what it encounters. Moments of resonance can often be felt directly in the body. When something aligns deeply with the truth within you, the breath becomes softer, the chest opens slightly, and time itself seems to slow, as if awareness has momentarily stepped into a clearer current. In such moments, there is no need to analyze or interpret what is happening, because the body already understands the harmony being restored. Every environment carries a tone, and every encounter gently influences the vibration you hold. A room filled with tension feels different from one filled with calm, and the presence of a single peaceful person can soften an entire space without a word being spoken. Attention moves through these environments constantly, tuning itself to whatever it rests upon, which is why what we focus on gradually shapes the atmosphere we carry. As resonance changes, life changes with it. Certain relationships, habits, or directions that once felt natural may slowly drift away, not because something has gone wrong, but because the music has shifted. What once belonged to an earlier rhythm no longer echoes the same tone. The fading of those echoes often makes room for something clearer, something closer to the quiet source from which awareness arises. With time, a deeper realization begins to unfold. It becomes clear that reality was never something to force into existence, but something that quietly responds to the frequency of awareness itself. Every experience becomes part of a larger symphony shaped by the vibration carried within your own presence. The law of resonance does not judge what it hears. It simply harmonizes. And when the tone within you settles into the gentle frequency of love, steady and unforced, the distance between the self and the universe begins to dissolve. What once seemed separate reveals itself as part of the same living field, until at last it becomes possible to hear what has always been present beneath the surface of existence. The universe answering your own vibration like an echo returning through the stars. Chapter 21. The Gift of Silence. There is a doorway in human experience that cannot be reached by sound. It does not open through effort, and it does not respond to noise or explanation. It waits quietly in the small spaces most people overlook, in the pause between two words, in the soft stillness between one breath and the next. This doorway leads into silence. Not the kind of silence people often imagine, the mere absence of sound, but something far more subtle and alive. True silence carries a presence. It is the quiet field beneath every sound, the still background against which all movement appears. Within that stillness exists a depth that language cannot fully describe. The hidden world speaks through this quiet. Its messages are not made of sentences, but of subtle frequencies that can only be sensed when the mind becomes calm enough to receive them. For many people, silence feels uncomfortable at first. When the outer noise fades, the mind suddenly hears itself more clearly. Thoughts that were once hidden beneath distraction grow louder. Emotions that were quietly waiting beneath the surface begin to rise into awareness. The inner landscape becomes visible in a way that can feel unfamiliar. Because of this, many people hurry away from silence. Yet if you remain there gently, breathing slowly through that first wave of restlessness, something begins to change. The turbulence of thought gradually settles. What once felt like noise slowly dissolves, and awareness begins to open in the same way dawn emerges through morning fog. Clarity appears without effort. Silence reveals itself as the quiet foundation beneath all creation. Every sound arises from it and eventually returns to it. Every thought begins there before it takes shape in the mind. In ancient traditions, mystics often described silence as the womb of existence, a boundless space that appears empty, yet quietly holds everything. When awareness rests within this field, a subtle hum of life can be felt beneath the surface of experience. It is not a sound in the ordinary sense. Rather, it is a feeling of presence, a gentle rhythm of existence moving through everything at once. Peace begins to expand beyond the edges of the mind, as though awareness has stepped into a wider horizon. In many ancient temples, seekers were taught to listen in a different way. They would sit quietly for long periods, not listening for noise, but for the spaces between sounds. Gradually, their attention would deepen, and subtle sensations would begin to appear. A soft ringing of energy within the body, a delicate vibration beneath the breath, the quiet movement of life itself. What they were learning was not merely patience. They were learning perception, because only a still mind can hear what silence carries. When the habit of constant thinking loosens, guidance begins to arise naturally. Insight appears without force, the way ripples form gently across the surface of still water. In such moments, understanding does not feel like something discovered through effort, but something quietly revealed. The universe speaks most clearly when we stop trying to interpret every movement of life. Listening becomes enough. As awareness deepens, something else becomes clear as well. Truth rarely arrives as a sentence. It appears instead as a feeling of recognition, a quiet sense of rightness that moves through the body before the mind has time to analyze it. In this way, silence becomes a gift. Even brief moments of it can restore balance. Pausing between actions, allowing a single breath to pass without thought, can soften the tension of an entire day. In those small intervals of stillness, time seems to slow slightly, and awareness begins to widen. The mind recalibrates, the soul remembers its natural rhythm. Silence becomes a kind of tuning chamber, gently aligning awareness with a deeper frequency that has always been present. Within that space, the boundaries between the self and the world begin to soften. The observer and what is observed feel less separate, as though both belong to the same quiet field. Gradually, a subtle realization emerges. You are not inside the silence. You are the silence. Awareness itself, observing the movement of life from within a still and infinite presence. In that realization, listening becomes effortless. Words lose their urgency and communication becomes simpler. When speech returns, it carries more meaning because it rises from the quiet depth beneath it. Silence becomes teacher, refuge, and companion. It reminds you that beneath every sound, beneath every thought, beneath every movement of life, there has always been a quiet presence waiting patiently to be noticed. And when you rest fully within that presence, you discover something unexpected. Silence was never empty. It was the deepest expression of who you have always been. Chapter 22, The Bridge of Intuition. Somewhere between the movement of thought and the quiet certainty of knowing, there exists a subtle crossing that many people pass over without realizing it. It does not appear in the mind as an argument, nor does it unfold through careful reasoning. Instead, it arrives quietly, almost like a soft light appearing in the distance of awareness. This crossing is intuition. It is the invisible bridge that connects the human mind, with all its questions and calculations, to a deeper field of awareness that already understands far more than logic can explain. When you touch this bridge, something different begins to guide your perception. Understanding does not form step by step. It appears whole, as though it has traveled from a place where truth already exists in its complete form. Intuition does not argue. It does not attempt to persuade or convince. It simply arrives with a calm clarity that feels strangely familiar, like remembering something you once knew but had forgotten how to name. Many people assume intuition is a rare gift possessed by only a few, yet it has always been part of the natural language of the soul. In the early years of life, before layers of conditioning shape the mind, this language flows easily. Children often sense what feels right or wrong without needing to explain why. Their decisions arise through feeling, through the quiet signals of the body and the subtle awareness beneath thought. As life grows more complex, however, the mind becomes louder. The world rewards analysis and careful reasoning, and slowly the quiet voice beneath them is overlooked. Intuition does not disappear during this time. It simply grows softer beneath the noise of expectation and doubt. Attention moves elsewhere, and the bridge remains unnoticed for a while. Yet it never vanishes. Even in the busiest moments of life, there is often a small sensation that arrives before the mind begins to deliberate. A gentle pull toward one choice, a quiet hesitation about another. These impressions are subtle, appearing almost instantly, and they fade just as quickly when the mind begins its familiar process of questioning. But that first signal carries a kind of purity. It is the language of intuition. Crossing the bridge of intuition requires no effort, only trust. The more it is ignored, the fainter it becomes. But each time it is honored, even in small ways, the connection strengthens. Gradually, the signal grows clearer, not louder, but more recognizable. With time, you begin to notice its texture. Intuition feels light and effortless, like a calm certainty resting beneath the surface of awareness. Even when it points toward unfamiliar paths, the body often feels relaxed rather than tense. Fear, on the other hand, moves differently. It presses for urgency, asks for endless proof, and tightens the body with the weight of doubt. Intuition does not rush, it simply waits. Ancient traditions understood this quiet guidance in their own ways. In certain mystery schools, students were trained to trust perception beyond ordinary sight. They practiced moving through space with their eyes closed, allowing awareness to guide their steps instead of relying solely on vision. At first, the movements were uncertain, but with time, a different kind of knowing emerged. Their choices became fluid, their timing precise, as though an unseen intelligence was quietly coordinating their path. The teachers often described intuition as the echo of the higher self, guiding awareness back toward its natural home. This same echo moves through daily life. Whenever the mind becomes still, intuition can be felt again, humming softly beneath the surface of thought. It does not leave when ignored. It simply waits, patient and steady, until attention returns. Silence allows it to rise. Meditation makes its presence clearer. Honest emotion often reveals it as well, because intuition speaks most clearly through authenticity. Sometimes its guidance leads beyond what logic feels comfortable with. It may suggest releasing something familiar or stepping toward a direction that appears uncertain. Yet when those quiet signals are followed with sincerity, life often begins to unfold in ways that feel almost mysteriously precise. Encounters happen at meaningful moments. Paths open that seemed invisible before. These moments are not accidents. They are the natural coherence that appears when awareness trusts the deeper rhythm guiding it. And over time, another realization begins to form. Intuition was never truly a bridge between two separate places. It only appeared that way because the mind once believed itself separate from the larger field of consciousness. In truth, the knowing and the knower have always belonged to the same awareness. The bridge existed only to remind you of that connection. And when you walk it often enough, trusting the quiet certainty that rises within you, the distance between thought and knowing begins to disappear. Until one day, the bridge itself fades completely, and you move through life guided by knowing alone. Chapter 23. The reflection of others. Every person who enters your life carries a reflection. Sometimes it appears as kindness, sometimes as tension, sometimes as a quiet familiarity that is difficult to explain. Yet behind each encounter, there is often a deeper pattern unfolding, one that reveals something about yourself in ways that ordinary reflection never could. In this sense, the people you meet become mirrors. Some mirrors reveal the beauty that already lives within you. Others illuminate places where old wounds still wait quietly beneath the surface. None of these reflections arrive by accident. Each interaction becomes a subtle invitation for awareness to see itself more clearly. Relationships, when seen from this perspective, are rarely random. They are moments in which life arranges for consciousness to meet itself from a different angle. When someone's words stir discomfort or confusion, there is often a temptation to react quickly, to defend or withdraw. Yet, if a brief pause is allowed, another possibility begins to appear. A question quietly arises: what part of myself is being revealed here? Often what disturbs us most strongly in others touches something within us that has not yet been fully understood or accepted. The world rarely provokes what has already been reconciled inside the heart. In this way, irritation becomes more than conflict. It becomes a signal, gently pointing towards something that still longs for recognition. Those who disturb your peace are not necessarily obstacles placed in your path. They can be messengers. Their presence reflects something waiting to be seen more clearly, as though they are holding up a mirror and inviting you to look more closely rather than turn away. When that invitation is received with curiosity instead of resistance, what once felt like tension begins to transform into insight. The same principle appears in moments of connection as well. When you encounter someone whose presence feels calming or deeply familiar, it is easy to believe that they are the source of that peace. Yet often what is happening is something subtler. Their presence simply reminds you of a harmony that already exists within yourself. Through them, you remember your own capacity for stillness. Every relationship awakens something dormant in awareness, a resonance that becomes visible only through interaction. In this way, the people who enter your life are not drawn by chance alone. They arrive through a quiet alignment of energies that recognize one another. Ancient mystics once described life as a hall of mirrors. They believed that every face we encounter reflects some fragment of our own consciousness. The enlightened, they said, eventually see no true strangers and no true enemies, only different expressions of the same awareness appearing in many forms. To forgive another person, in this understanding, becomes something deeper than an act of kindness. It becomes the recognition that misunderstanding can dissolve once the shared humanity beneath it is seen. Even endings carry meaning within this pattern. Sometimes a mirror breaks. Words are spoken, paths separate, and relationships that once felt essential come quietly to a close. Such moments can feel painful, yet even these transitions hold their own form of completion. A broken mirror does not signify failure. It often reveals that a particular reflection has served its purpose. Something has been learned, something seen more clearly, and life gently changes the shape of the reflection that follows. The sense of separation that comes with these endings often carries the final echo of attachment, releasing its lesson. With time, even that echo softens, leaving behind a clearer understanding of what the experience was meant to reveal. Working with this quiet law begins with a softer way of seeing. When conflict appears, a single breath before responding can open space for awareness. In that pause, it becomes possible to look beyond the surface of the interaction and ask what understanding might be waiting within it. Often, the reflection holds a gift. Perhaps it reveals patience where impatience once lived. Perhaps it uncovers compassion for parts of yourself that were once judged too harshly. With attention, reaction slowly transforms into revelation. Gradually, every encounter begins to feel meaningful. Each person becomes a teacher in some quiet way. Compassion grows naturally when judgment loosens its hold, because understanding replaces the impulse to condemn. When awareness sees more deeply, it begins to recognize the shared essence beneath the many different stories people carry. Love, in this sense, becomes less dependent on behavior and more rooted in perception. To see clearly becomes an expression of care. And with time, another shift quietly unfolds. The mirrors that once seemed necessary begin to fade in importance. Self-understanding grows steady enough that it no longer depends entirely on reflection from others. Yet the faces around you remain meaningful, not as reminders of conflict or separation, but as gentle extensions of the same light moving through many lives at once. In that recognition, the boundaries between self and others soften, and each meeting becomes an opportunity to witness awareness greeting itself. Eventually, the mirrors fulfill their purpose. What once appeared as many reflections begins to reveal a deeper unity beneath them all. The differences remain, yet they no longer divide. They simply become the countless ways life expresses the same quiet source. And through every gaze you meet, awareness recognizes itself again. Chapter 24, The Doorway of Compassion. There is a quiet threshold within the human heart that cannot be opened by intellect, persuasion, or effort alone. It yields only to gentleness, to the softening that happens when understanding begins to replace judgment. This threshold is the doorway of compassion, and when it opens, the way we see the world begins to change in ways that are both subtle and profound. Through this doorway, suffering appears in a different light. What once seemed like weakness or failure begins to look more like a signal, a moment in which life itself is asking to be met with care rather than resistance. Compassion does not approach suffering from a distance. It does not stand above it or observe it as something separate. Instead, it recognizes a shared thread running quietly through every human experience. In that recognition, the barrier between self and other begins to soften. Compassion is often misunderstood as pity, yet the two are very different. Pity implies separation, as though one person stands safely apart while another struggles below. True compassion carries no such distance. It senses the same vulnerability, the same longing for peace, moving through every life. When this awareness awakens, perception itself becomes more sensitive. Moments that once passed unnoticed begin to carry deeper meaning. The sadness in a stranger's eyes, the quiet relief in someone's smile, even the warmth of sunlight across a silent morning begin to feel connected to the same living presence. What once seemed ordinary begins to reveal a deeper unity beneath it. At first, such sensitivity can feel overwhelming. To feel the world more fully can seem like opening the door to too much pain. Many people instinctively try to close again, believing that distance will protect the heart. Yet the heart is not strengthened by closing. It is strengthened by movement, by allowing care to circulate freely rather than remain trapped within. Compassion, when allowed to move naturally, does something remarkable. It does not absorb the suffering it encounters. Instead, it transforms the energy around it, much as light passing through glass softens the shadows it touches. In this way, compassion becomes less an emotion and more a quiet force that reshapes the atmosphere of every interaction. For centuries, spiritual teachers described compassion as the highest expression of awareness. They observed that understanding alone could reveal truth, but compassion allowed that truth to live and breathe in the world. When wisdom is felt through the heart rather than held only in thought, it becomes presence, and presence itself begins to heal. Even the smallest acts of kindness carry this quiet power. A gentle word, an attentive silence, or a moment of patience can ripple far beyond the moment in which it occurs. These gestures seem simple, yet they subtly shift the tone of the world around them, reminding others, often without explanation, that care still exists. Compassion also invites attention toward the places where it feels most difficult. Often, the strongest resistance appears when we think of someone who has caused us pain. The instinct may be to close the heart in order to protect it. Yet, if awareness pauses there for a moment, something different can begin to emerge. Instead of tightening, the heart can soften slightly. Not to excuse harm, but to release the heavy weight that resentment quietly places on the spirit. When understanding is allowed to enter even the most painful memories, the energy held there begins to loosen, and something unexpected appears in its place. Freedom. Forgiveness is sometimes misunderstood as surrender, yet in truth it often becomes the release of a burden carried too long. In that release, both the one who held the pain and the one who caused it are quietly set free from the same invisible chain. Compassion, however, cannot flow outward if it is absent within. The same kindness offered to others must also be extended toward oneself. The parts of us that carry regret, shame, or uncertainty often hide quietly beneath the surface, waiting for the same patience we so readily offer to those we care about. When those hidden parts are met with gentleness instead of criticism, healing begins in a deeper way. Speaking inwardly with kindness, much as one might comfort a frightened child, creates space for those wounded places to breathe again. And as that inner kindness grows, it naturally extends outward, touching the world through every interaction. In time, compassion begins to feel less like something you do and more like a presence you carry. People sense it without needing explanation. Conversations soften, tensions ease, and even silence seems to hold a quiet reassurance. Not because of words spoken, but because of the atmosphere that surrounds a compassionate heart. Compassion is not merely an action. It is a field of awareness in which love becomes visible again. Standing within this field changes how life is understood. Challenges and heartbreaks that once felt meaningless begin to reveal another purpose. They become moments that quietly shape the capacity to feel more deeply, to understand more fully, and to meet the world with a gentler gaze. In that understanding, the illusions of separation begin to dissolve. Compassion sees through them with remarkable clarity. What once appeared as many separate struggles begins to reveal a shared longing beneath them all, a longing for peace, for connection, for love. And beyond that doorway, where compassion fully awakens, something simple and profound becomes clear. The world has never been divided in the way it once seemed. Behind every story, every sorrow, and every moment of joy, the same living presence continues to breathe, quietly, patiently, through every heart. Chapter 25, The Fire of Truth. Truth has a presence that is difficult to ignore once it begins to reveal itself. It does not rely on persuasion, nor does it seek approval. Instead, it arrives quietly, but with a certain intensity, like a flame that illuminates whatever stands before it. Where that flame touches, confusion begins to thin, and the shapes of things become clearer. This is the fire of truth. Its nature is not harsh, yet it is unwavering. Truth does not bend itself to comfort or convenience, and it rarely waits for perfect readiness before appearing. When it enters awareness, the illusions we have carried about who we are, about what we must pretend to be, about the roles we have learned to perform, begin to loosen their hold. At first, this can feel unsettling. Many people instinctively step away from this fire, not because truth is cruel, but because it reveals how many layers of identity have quietly formed around us. These layers often feel familiar, even protective. They are the habits of self-image, the narratives repeated so often that they begin to feel permanent. Yet when truth touches them, something curious happens. They begin to fall away, one by one, like old garments no longer needed. What remains beneath them is often simpler than expected, lighter, and closer to the essence that was always present before those stories formed. The process can feel intense for a moment, much like standing near a warm flame after a long time in the cold. But the discomfort rarely lasts. What dissolves in that heat is rarely the self itself. Instead, it is the husk of identities that once served a purpose but are no longer alive with meaning. Many people first encounter this fire during moments of deep honesty, perhaps in a quiet realization that something in life can no longer continue the same way. Perhaps in a moment when a truth long avoided suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. These moments often arrive unexpectedly, yet they carry a strange clarity. A quiet voice inside simply says, "Enough." For a brief moment, that recognition may feel like loss. Something familiar disappears, but gradually another understanding emerges. What vanished was never the core of who you were. It was only a layer of misunderstanding dissolving in the light. Ancient traditions often spoke of truth as a purifier. In some ceremonies, seekers would sit before a small sacred flame and speak aloud the illusions they had carried, beliefs about themselves that no longer felt true, stories shaped by fear rather than clarity. The act was symbolic, yet powerful. As the words dissolved into smoke, the participants felt a subtle release, as though the fire itself had absorbed what no longer belonged. They understood that truth is not merely a concept. It is a kind of resonance, a clarity that gradually fills the mind and heart until distortion can no longer remain. When someone aligns with that resonance, life begins to feel more transparent. Actions grow simpler. Words carry less strain because they no longer need to maintain a disguise. Truth, however, asks a gentle but important question. What are you willing to release in order to live honestly? Sometimes the answer involves letting go of beliefs that once felt secure. Sometimes it means recognizing that certain habits or relationships no longer reflect who you are becoming. These shifts can feel uncertain at first, yet the fire of truth rarely takes anything essential. Instead, it refines. What survives that refinement becomes clearer, stronger, and deeply authentic. Like gold purified by flame, what remains is something real enough to endure without effort. Inviting this clarity does not require dramatic action. Often it begins in quiet moments of stillness, when awareness becomes calm enough to look inward without distraction. In such moments, a simple openness can appear, almost like a silent willingness to see things as they truly are. And slowly, awareness begins to sharpen. Thoughts become less tangled. Emotions that once felt confusing start to reveal their deeper messages. It is as though a warm light has been lit within the heart, illuminating corners that were once hidden in shadow. As this inner fire continues its work, the world itself begins to look different. Situations that once seemed complicated reveal simpler truths beneath them. The need to defend or pretend gradually fades, replaced by a quiet steadiness that does not depend on appearances. Life becomes lighter, not because challenges disappear, but because the energy once spent protecting illusions is no longer necessary. Honesty creates a kind of spaciousness inside the spirit. With time, the fear of truth also fades. The flame that once seemed intimidating begins to feel like warmth, steady, calm, and guiding. Instead of something to avoid, it becomes a quiet presence carried within. When someone lives with that presence, their words carry a gentle clarity. Their actions reflect authenticity without effort. People feel a certain calm around them, as though the light they carry quietly reminds others of their own. In this way, truth does not expose or condemn, it simply illuminates. And when the fire of truth has completed its quiet work, what remains is not destruction but clarity, a steady glow within the heart, bright enough to light the path ahead and gentle enough to warm every step along the way. Chapter 26, The Moment of Recognition. There comes a moment in every long journey when the traveler slows, not because the road has ended, but because something ancient begins to stir beneath the noise of movement. It does not announce itself with thunder or revelation. It arrives the way dawn once arrived to the first watchers of the sky, quietly, almost unnoticed, until the darkness has already begun to soften. This is the moment of recognition. It cannot be summoned by effort, nor earned through struggle. It reveals itself when striving loosens its grip and awareness, for a brief and luminous instant, turns inward and sees what has always been present. In that instant, the world does not change, yet everything appears subtly different, as though a veil too thin to notice has quietly fallen away. The air feels wider, the silence feels deeper, and something within you recognizes a presence older than thought. For most of life, the mind believes awakening lies somewhere ahead, hidden behind discipline, knowledge, or time. The seeker moves forward year after year, collecting teachings, questions, and answers like lanterns carried through fog. Yet the strange truth waiting at the end of that search is this: the light was never ahead. It was always behind the eyes that were searching. Recognition begins when the seeker grows tired of the search itself, not in defeat, but in a quiet surrender that happens when every question has been asked too many times. The mind pauses, the effort softens, and in that stillness, something ancient begins to breathe, a presence that has never been absent. It feels less like discovery and more like remembrance, like hearing a melody that was once known long ago before memory took the shape of language. Something within you nods gently, as though greeting an old companion who has been standing beside you since the beginning of time. The sages of earlier ages spoke of this moment with careful humility. They called it the blink of eternity. They said that awareness, which had spent lifetimes looking outward, suddenly recognizes its own reflection within itself. In one quiet instant, the mind may still be thinking, yet awareness has already stepped behind thought, watching it drift like mist across a vast and endless sky. Nothing has been gained. Nothing has been lost. Only the illusion of separation begins to thin. At first, the recognition flickers, like a distant star appearing between clouds. A brief glimpse of clarity, a softness in perception, a sense that something immeasurably vast is quietly present beneath the ordinary movement of life. The mind may try to hold this moment, to study it or repeat it. But awareness cannot be captured. The more gently you release the attempt to grasp it, the more naturally it remains. Recognition deepens not through control, but through relaxation, through the quiet permission to let awareness simply be what it already is. Slowly, the glimpses begin to linger. What was once a fleeting moment becomes a quiet atmosphere within which life unfolds. Thoughts still pass through the mind, emotions still rise and fall, yet they appear more like weather moving across a sky that no storm can truly disturb. Something deeper has become visible, and that visibility changes everything without altering anything. To the mind, awakening may sometimes feel like emptiness. Familiar identities begin to dissolve, and the structures that once defined certainty quietly fade. Yet what feels empty to the mind feels spacious to the soul. For the first time, awareness rests within itself. In this stillness, joy arises in a form that is difficult to explain. It is not excitement, nor triumph, nor the satisfaction of reaching a destination. It is simpler than that, a calm recognition that nothing essential has ever been missing. Life continues exactly as before. The same streets unfold beneath your feet, the same voices fill the air, the same rhythms of day and night continue their ancient dance. Yet, everything carries a subtle transparency, as though the world itself has become a thin veil through which something luminous is quietly shining. The sacred no longer appears distant. It reveals itself in the smallest things: the flicker of a candle in a dark room, the slow rhythm of breath, the quiet space between two thoughts. In these ordinary moments, the infinite becomes visible, not as something separate from life, but as the very substance of it. Eventually, you stop calling it a moment. Recognition becomes the atmosphere in which experience unfolds. Awareness wakes each morning through the same human eyes, yet now it recognizes itself looking back from every reflection of the world. The journey does not end, but the traveler is no longer searching. The same earth is walked, the same sky stretches above, yet each step carries a quiet radiance. Not because the world has changed, but because the one who walks has remembered what they have always been. Light recognizing light. Chapter 27. The Infinite Mirror. Beyond the restless play of appearances, beyond the shifting reflections that rise and fall within the mind, there exists a mirror so vast and ancient that it cannot be seen as an object. It is not made of glass, nor framed by edges. It is the field of awareness itself, endlessly reflecting consciousness into form. The mystics called this the infinite mirror. Not because it shows a single image, but because it reveals existence unfolding as reflection upon reflection, a living tapestry in which every moment quietly reveals the same hidden source. When you begin to look into life with deeper attention, something subtle becomes noticeable. The world does not merely appear before you as scenery. Instead, it begins to feel as though it is looking back, as though the intelligence that animates everything is quietly meeting your gaze from within every form, not as a distant presence, but as the same awareness moving through every perception. What you once called the world begins to resemble a vast shimmer of consciousness studying itself. Every sound, every encounter, every quiet coincidence becomes part of this endless reflection. Life reveals itself not as a collection of separate objects, but as a living mirror through which awareness explores its own depth. For most of life, this mirror seems personal. The emotions you carry echo through your experiences. The thoughts you nurture shape the patterns that appear around you. In this way, the world reflects your inner tone, responding to your fears, your hopes, your quiet expectations. Yet the infinite mirror extends far beyond the personal mind. When perception grows clearer, another layer of reflection begins to appear. Beneath your individual experience flows something older and larger, the quiet current of collective consciousness moving through every human life. You begin to sense it in subtle ways. In the familiar weight of ancient patterns, in the shared longing for meaning that appears across cultures and generations, in the quiet ache that humanity carries as it slowly awakens to itself. Looking into the infinite mirror reveals not only your own reflection, but the reflection of the entire human story breathing through you. In this recognition, boundaries soften. The separation between observer and observed begins to dissolve. The tree in the distance, the stranger passing by, even the sky itself begins to feel strangely intimate, as though each form carries the same silent awareness wearing a different face. At first, this perception can feel disorienting. It is not unusual for a moment to arrive when you look at something simple, a leaf trembling in wind, the eyes of another person, and feel a sudden sense that the universe itself is quietly gazing through that form. This is not imagination. It is the beginning of recognition. For the deeper surprise is not that life is conscious, but that it has always been so. The universe has never been a silent machine. It has always been alive with perception, patiently waiting for awareness to notice its own reflection. The ancient mystics understood this well. They spoke of polishing the mirror of perception until distortion vanished. They believed that the heart, when cleared of fear and division, became the true surface of this mirror. When the heart grew transparent, they said, every reflection revealed the same divine light moving through countless shapes. To them, enlightenment was not escape from the world. It was the ability to see the world without distortion. When perception becomes clear in this way, ordinary moments take on a quiet sacredness. A passing smile, the rumble of distant thunder, even a silent room filled with evening light begins to feel like part of a larger ceremony unfolding through existence itself. You begin to notice something else as well. Life does not only happen to you, it happens through you. The same intelligence that shapes galaxies moves gently through your breath, through your thoughts, through every perception that arises within awareness. The infinite mirror reveals that you are not merely observing reality, you are participating in the very consciousness that creates it. In this vision, suffering itself takes on a different meaning. Pain no longer appears as random cruelty, but often as the soul's quiet request for wholeness. Events that once seemed chaotic reveal subtle patterns waiting patiently for recognition. The mirror reflects not only beauty, but also the hidden invitations within every challenge. Yet this vision carries its own quiet test. When you begin to recognize yourself within everything, pride dissolves. There is no place left for superiority when the same awareness shines through every life. To honor yourself becomes inseparable from honoring everything that shares the same light. Compassion arises naturally, not because it is commanded, but because the illusion of separation weakens. To harm another begins to feel like damaging your own reflection, and kindness becomes less a moral rule than a natural response to shared existence. In moments of confusion, the infinite mirror offers a simple invitation. Instead of staring only at events, look through them. Let your gaze soften and ask quietly what deeper reflection might be appearing within the moment. Often the answer does not arrive as a clear explanation, but as a gentle alignment felt within the body itself, a relaxation, a quiet sense of truth settling into place. Over time, even the image of a mirror begins to dissolve. The distinction between reflection and reflected fades away until only awareness remains, luminous, silent, endlessly present. What once appeared as countless separate surfaces reveals itself as one continuous field of consciousness exploring its own depth. The infinite mirror was never an object. It was a metaphor for awareness awakening to itself. And when that recognition deepens, every surface begins to glow with quiet familiarity. The world becomes a living reflection of the same light moving through every form, an endless remembering, light recognizing its own source. Chapter 28. The Law of Alignment. Truth has a quiet way of revealing itself, but only where life is willing to carry it. Ideas alone cannot hold it for long. Words may describe it beautifully, yet if they drift away from the life that speaks them, the clarity they promise begins to fade. The law of alignment emerges here, in the subtle space between knowing something and living it. It is the gentle bridge between understanding and embodiment. Alignment is not the pursuit of perfection. It is something simpler and more demanding than that. It is honesty lived quietly, moment after moment, until thought, word, and action begin to move in the same direction. When this happens, a certain coherence begins to form within the spirit, like instruments in an orchestra gradually tuning to the same key. Life begins to sound different. Most people spend years living with a quiet division inside themselves. One part of the mind knows what feels true, while another part moves through habits shaped by comfort, expectation, or fear. That separation is subtle, yet its effects are unmistakable. Energy feels scattered, decisions feel heavy, and clarity seems to come and go like light behind passing clouds. Alignment gently dissolves that division. It asks only that what is known inwardly begins to appear outwardly in the way one lives. When this happens, the friction that once accompanied every choice begins to fade. The mind grows quieter because it is no longer negotiating between truth and compromise. This quiet coherence carries its own form of strength. The ancient psychologists and philosophers sometimes described it as the unfolding of the self into wholeness, the gradual willingness to live not from the masks that society rewards, but from the deeper center of being that has always existed beneath them. The path toward this wholeness is rarely dramatic. It unfolds through ordinary decisions made with increasing sincerity, and with each such decision, perception grows clearer. Misalignment, on the other hand, often announces itself through subtle disturbances. The body tightens without explanation. Thoughts become restless. Emotions swing between clarity and confusion. These experiences are rarely punishments. They are signals. They are the psyche asking gently to return to coherence. Anxiety, in this sense, sometimes acts like a quiet messenger. It appears not to condemn, but to reveal where life has drifted away from its own truth. When that message is heard without judgment, it becomes guidance rather than burden. Integrity then reveals itself in a new light. It is not merely a moral command, it is a natural resonance. When someone lives with integrity, their inner world and outer life begin to reflect one another like two clear surfaces meeting without distortion. In that reflection, energy flows freely. The sages of earlier traditions often spoke about alignment in the language of prayer. Not the prayer of words alone, but the prayer of living truthfully. They observed that the universe responds less to what is spoken than to the vibration carried behind it. When intention and action move together, something remarkable begins to happen. Life begins to respond with ease. Situations align in unexpected ways. Encounters occur at the right moment. Work unfolds with a quiet rhythm that feels almost guided. From the outside, this may appear as fortune, yet within it feels more like harmony. You can often recognize alignment through the body. Breathing becomes deeper. The chest opens. Movements feel natural, unforced. Time itself seems to slow slightly, as though the pace of life has fallen into step with a deeper rhythm that was always present beneath the surface. This rhythm is not created by effort. It emerges when effort no longer struggles against truth. To cultivate alignment begins with listening. Every decision carries a subtle vibration. Some choices expand awareness, bringing a quiet spaciousness to the body and mind. Others constrict, leaving behind a faint heaviness that lingers long after the moment has passed. The body often senses this difference before the mind can explain it. Honoring these signals gradually leads life toward a path of coherence. Yet this path sometimes asks for release. Habits that once felt familiar may no longer fit. Relationships may shift. Old identities may soften or fall away. Such moments can feel uncertain. But what leaves in these seasons of alignment rarely belong to the deeper self. Letting go becomes less about loss and more about clearing space for something truer to emerge. After such release, a brief emptiness often appears. This emptiness is not absence. It is recalibration, the quiet pause between heartbeats before a new rhythm begins. Within that pause, awareness settles again into balance. Over time, alignment stops feeling like a practice. It becomes a way of being. Decisions no longer require constant deliberation because the life you live reflects the truth you carry. Thought, speech, and action move together naturally, like water flowing along a path already shaped for it. And in that natural flow, perception becomes clear. Reality feels lighter, less resistant. The world appears more transparent, as though the veil that once separated intention from experience has slowly dissolved. The law of alignment does not enforce itself through punishment. It simply reveals harmony where truth is lived. And where harmony is present, life unfolds with a quiet grace, guiding each step as though the path itself has begun to recognize the one walking upon it. Chapter 29. The Dissolving of Form. A mountain at dusk can teach something the mind rarely notices. When the last light of the sun stretches across its surface, the stone that looked immovable all day begins to glow softly, as if its edges are no longer as rigid as they seemed. The same mountain stands there, unchanged in shape, yet something in its presence feels different. The boundary between rock, light, and air becomes harder to define. Moments like this hint at a deeper perception. What appears solid during the busy hours of life slowly reveals its fluid nature when awareness becomes quiet enough to see. The dissolving of form does not mean the world disappears. It means the certainty we once placed upon its surfaces begins to soften, allowing the deeper movement beneath appearance to become visible. For most of life, the mind treats objects as fixed things. A tree is simply wood and leaves. A body is flesh and bone. A thought is an idea we must hold or defend. Yet when perception deepens, these definitions begin to loosen. The tree becomes a living rhythm of growth, wind and sunlight moving through matter. The body becomes a field of breath, sensation, and quiet energy unfolding moment by moment. Even thoughts reveal a similar nature. What once felt permanent now appears more like weather crossing a wide sky. A belief arrives, forms briefly, then fades into something else. Awareness remains, watching the movement without needing to grasp it. This shift in perception can feel unsettling at first. The mind prefers certainty because certainty creates the feeling of control. When the edges of things begin to soften, the familiar architecture of understanding trembles slightly. Yet what first appears uncertain gradually reveals another quality: freedom. When form is no longer mistaken for permanence, life becomes lighter. Objects lose their heavy finality and begin to feel more like expressions of movement. The mountain becomes a slow wave of earth rising through time. The river becomes motion itself, shaping the land. The body also changes in this perception. Instead of feeling like a container that holds awareness, it begins to feel like an instrument through which awareness experiences the world. Breath moves through it, Sensations ripple across it. Thoughts pass through like crossing an open sky. Mystics from many traditions noticed this transformation. They described matter and spirit not as opposites, but as different densities of the same essence. When they looked at a forest, they did not only see trees. They sensed patterns of energy resting in temporary form, much like waves pausing before returning to the sea. Psychology later described a similar shift in another language. When perception becomes symbolic rather than strictly literal, the world begins to reveal meaning beneath appearance. A storm is no longer only weather, it becomes a mirror of inner movement. A sunrise becomes more than light, it becomes renewal, made visible. Reality begins to speak in quiet metaphors. Living within this awareness reveals something remarkable. Nothing truly stands still. Every object you see is already changing. The stone slowly erodes. The leaf grows and fades. Even the body transforms with each passing breath. Impermanence stops feeling like loss. It begins to feel like the pulse of life itself. Meditation often reveals this most clearly. When the mind becomes still and attention rests gently within the body, the boundary between self and world begins to soften. Breath flows in and out until it becomes difficult to say where the body ends and the air begins. For a moment, awareness simply rests, not inside something, not outside something, just present. This is the quiet revelation behind the dissolving of form. As appearances loosen, the essence beneath them becomes easier to sense. What once seemed like separate objects begins to resemble different expressions of the same living presence. The veil between form and source grows thin. And when that happens, the world begins to glow with a subtle transparency. The sound of wind, the movement of water, the warmth of another human hand, each becomes a doorway through which the same light quietly reveals itself. Change no longer feels threatening. Change becomes the breathing of existence. Forms arise so that life can express itself. They dissolve so that expression can continue in new ways. Nothing essential disappears in this movement, only shapes transform. And when this realization settles fully, something gentle and vast becomes clear. Form was never meant to confine awareness. It was simply the language through which the infinite briefly learned to see itself. Chapter 30. The Union of Heaven and Earth. In the quiet stillness that follows awakening, something subtle begins to unfold within you. Not an escape from the world, not a rising above it, but a strange and sacred reconciliation. The spirit that once longed to ascend and the body that once seemed bound to earth begin to recognize one another. A meeting begins. This meeting is the union of heaven and earth, not as distant realms stacked above and below, but as two movements of the same consciousness finding harmony within the same breath. The infinite and the finite no longer stand opposed. The invisible and the tangible begin to move together, like breath and heartbeat sharing the same rhythm. For a long time, the mind imagined heaven somewhere far above the world. Earth was the place of weight and limitation, while spirit belonged to a higher domain. Yet awakening reveals something quieter and more surprising. Heaven was never far away. Earth was never separate. Both were reflections of the same living awareness, divided only by the way perception arranged them. When consciousness expands enough to hold both dimensions at once, the old polarity dissolves, and something new appears. You begin to live as a bridge. The crown of awareness opens gently toward the vastness of the cosmos, while the body remains rooted in the intelligence of the soil. One current moves upward, the other downward, and through your being, they begin to circulate freely. Energy flows between sky and ground, not symbolically, but as a living experience of balance. Older spiritual traditions often sought transcendence through departure. Enlightenment was imagined as leaving the world of form behind, rising toward pure spirit beyond the body. But a deeper realization emerges as awakening matures. The journey was never meant to abandon the earth. It was meant to illuminate it. Spirit does not wish to remain distant from matter. It longs to express itself through form, through hands that create, through voices that speak truth, through laughter shared between ordinary human beings. This is where mysticism becomes practical, where philosophy begins to take the shape of daily behavior, where the insights of the inner world move naturally into the movements of ordinary life. The ancient sages understood this alchemy well. In their rituals, they honored both sky and stone, seeing divinity reflected in each. They called light downward while blessing the earth beneath their feet. As above, so below, they would say, not as doctrine, but as remembrance. The same intelligence that spins galaxies also breathes through soil, through trees, through the quiet pulse within your chest. The cosmos was never somewhere else. It has always lived inside the rhythm of existence itself. When this union deepens within perception, the idea of separation loses meaning. Life can no longer be divided into sacred and mundane, spiritual and physical. Eating becomes meditation. Walking becomes prayer. Loving becomes a form of communion. Every ordinary act begins to carry the subtle radiance of presence. The body itself becomes a living temple, not through ceremony, but through awareness. Each heartbeat echoes the same rhythm that moves through stars and oceans alike. And perception begins to change. Heaven appears quietly within the smallest moments, sunlight trembling on water, the silence before dawn, the soft gaze of someone who has forgotten their own inner light. In such moments, a realization slowly emerges. The choice between earth and sky never truly existed. Both were always part of the same breath. The more deeply this balance is lived, the more life itself begins to harmonize around it. Creation responds naturally when vision and embodiment meet. What was once called manifestation begins to feel less like effort and more like coherence. Intention becomes movement. Movement becomes form. The infinite expresses itself through the finite without resistance. Eventually, the need to reach upward or downward disappears altogether. Awareness expands outward in all directions, carrying both eternity and embodiment within the same living pulse. And standing fully within this union, the deeper purpose of awakening becomes clear. Not to escape the world, but to illuminate it. You become the quiet horizon where sky touches soil, where the unseen finds expression in human life. Through that presence, the divine discovers its home within humanity, and the earth itself begins to shine with the light it always carried. In that stillness, heaven and earth breathe together, and the universe for a moment rests whole. Chapter 31. The Vision Eternal. On certain nights, when the sky is so clear that the stars seem almost close enough to touch, something unusual happens in the quiet of perception. The mind pauses its endless commentary, and for a brief moment, the world is not something you analyze or interpret. It is simply present. The stars glow in silence. The darkness between them feels alive, and awareness begins to sense that seeing itself is deeper than the eyes. This is where the ancient teachers placed the beginning of what they called the vision eternal. True sight, they said, does not belong to the senses alone. Eyes can close. Light can disappear. Yet the deeper capacity to perceive does not fade with darkness. It arises from a boundless field within awareness itself. Once this inner vision awakens, it does not close again, because it was never dependent on the eyes to begin with. What you see is no longer experienced as something separate from you. It is recognized as the reflection of consciousness unfolding itself through infinite forms. In this state, life is no longer merely observed from a distance. It feels more like light moving through awareness. Experiences arise, pass, and transform within the same living field that perceives them. The eyes of the soul begin to see differently. They do not hurry to divide the world into categories. They do not rush to decide what is worthy or unworthy, pleasant or painful. They simply witness. And in that witnessing, something subtle begins to change. Sorrow reveals an unexpected depth of beauty. Endings soften into transitions. Even death begins to resemble a change of rhythm within a larger movement of existence. For eternity does not begin somewhere beyond life. It pulses quietly through every heartbeat already. Most of the time, this pulse goes unnoticed beneath the restless noise of impermanence. The mind becomes preoccupied with what might be lost, what might disappear, what might slip away. But when the deeper vision opens, that fear begins to dissolve. Nothing truly leaves the field of awareness. The faces you loved, the moments that shaped you, the dreams that seemed to fade into memory, each continues to exist in another form within the vast continuum of being. They remain as living frequencies woven into the great fabric of consciousness itself. Existence does not vanish, it transforms. Mystics throughout history spoke carefully about this realization. They did not describe eternal vision as a gift granted from outside. They spoke of it as remembrance. Something already present within awareness begins to awaken when the soul grows quiet enough to see through time. They described moments when the veil between past and future becomes thin, when the movement of life gathers into a single luminous present. In that stillness, something becomes unmistakably clear. Every life you have lived has been preparing you for this way of seeing. Every heartbreak that deepened the heart, every joy that opened it wider, every difficult lesson that humbled your certainty, each refined the lens of perception. Each moment polished awareness so it could hold more light. Eternal vision, then, is not distant or abstract. It appears quietly in ordinary moments. Watching sunlight spill across the floor of a quiet room, pausing for a breath without urgency. Feeling gratitude arise for no particular reason at all. When awareness rests gently in such moments, something remarkable happens. The smallest experience begins to feel infinite. A single breath seems to stretch across time. A quiet moment carries the depth of something timeless. To see eternally is not to escape the present. It is to inhabit it so fully that time loosens its grip. Sometimes this recognition brings with it a soft ache, a quiet longing, as though something vast within you is slowly remembering its own nature. The sages said this feeling is not a problem to solve. It is a sacred signal. Eternity is remembering itself through you. There is no need to hurry this unfolding. Like sunrise, it reveals itself gradually. Light spreads across the horizon not by force but by presence. In the same way, every act of awareness gently polishes the lens of perception. Over time, the boundary between form and formlessness begins to soften. You begin to sense light behind everything, behind faces, behind clouds moving across the sky, even behind your own reflection when you pause long enough to notice. The divine stops feeling like a distant idea. It becomes a living pulse, moving quietly through every vibration of existence. Eventually, the search for heaven loses its urgency. Not because heaven does not exist, but because it reveals itself within the gaze itself. And when the vision eternal settles fully into awareness, something very simple becomes clear. There is nowhere else to go, nothing left to seek. Awareness expands beyond the narrow edges of individuality, while still remaining tenderly present within human form. The world continues as it always has, people moving through their days, wind touching the trees, stars appearing each night. Yet everything shimmers with quiet sacredness. The eyes of the soul look upon existence and recognize what words can barely express. All is one, and the one is endless. Chapter 32. The Return to Light Night. Night sometimes carries a strange stillness just before dawn. The world has not yet begun to move. The stars linger faintly above the horizon, and everything seems suspended between two breaths of existence. In that quiet threshold, the mind senses something difficult to name, a feeling that nothing is truly ending and nothing truly beginning. Everything is simply returning to its source. This is how the sages describe the return to light. Not as a journey forward, not as a destination waiting somewhere beyond the world, but as a gentle falling inward. A soft recognition that what was sought across countless questions was never distant. It was simply hidden beneath layers of experience, like sunlight behind a passing cloud. When this realization deepens, something subtle begins to dissolve. The impulse to search loosens. The need to define every mystery fades. Questions that once seemed urgent begin to fall silent, not because they were answered in words, but because awareness recognizes the place they were pointing toward. What remains is presence itself. Awareness resting quietly in its own radiance. From this perspective, the long arc of seeking reveals its secret. The circle that once felt incomplete was never broken. The light that seemed scattered through life's events was the same light moving through every experience from the beginning. The spark that guided you through confusion, through loss, through wonder and discovery was never absent. It was simply veiled. And when that veil begins to thin, perception clears in a way that feels almost effortless. Reality reveals its original quality, transparent, luminous, quietly alive. The divisions that once seemed absolute begin to soften. Self and cosmos no longer appear as separate realms. The seen and the unseen move within the same field. Even the difference between the seeker and what was sought begins to fade, until both are recognized as movements of the same awareness. In that recognition, something surprising becomes clear. Awakening was never about becoming more. It was about becoming less defended, less divided, less entangled in the stories that once defined identity. As these layers fall away, essence begins to shine through naturally. There is no dramatic victory in this moment, only quiet completion. Ancient traditions spoke about this stage in very simple language. They called it the homecoming of light. Not because something new had arrived, but because something ancient had finally been remembered. Many of those who described it said that the experience often brought tears, not of sorrow, but of recognition. The beauty of simplicity can overwhelm the mind that spent so long searching for complexity. To see with this clarity is to feel creation itself pulsing within the heartbeat. Time loosens its structure. The past no longer pulls with regret, and the future no longer demands prediction. Everything gathers into the living presence of now. In that presence, even the movement of days changes character. Instead of walking through time, it begins to feel as though time moves gently through you. Moments pass like wind across still water, touching, changing, continuing without resistance. Even the body, once heavy with personal history, begins to feel lighter in perception. Not because it disappears, but because its deeper nature becomes visible. The body reveals itself as rhythm, as vibration, as living participation in the larger movement of life. From this space, something else transforms quietly. Love stops behaving like an emotion that appears and disappears. It begins to feel more like a natural law, the effortless movement of existence toward itself. You love not because you try to, but because separation has grown thin. Compassion arises almost instinctively. Peace settles into the breath like something that had always belonged there. Words themselves begin to change. They carry less urgency, yet more resonance. Actions feel less forced, yet more aligned. It can feel as though the universe itself moves gently through your gestures, your voice, your presence. The return to light does not remove you from the world. It illuminates the world from within. Forms are still seen, yet they are recognized as expressions of frequency. Time continues to flow, yet it resembles a melody rather than a rigid line. Even silence begins to feel like a living presence rather than an absence of sound, and so the journey settles into rest. What began as longing slowly reveals itself as wholeness. The veil that once appeared so dense turns out to be nothing more than a soft mist of forgetting. When that mist clears, the truth that was always present becomes visible. You were never searching for the divine somewhere beyond your life. You were the divine learning to recognize its own reflection through it. Every path, every shadow, every moment of confusion was part of the unfolding that led awareness back to itself. All journeys eventually return to the same quiet center, the still point of awareness. From here, even these words begin to lose their purpose, because silence has always been the deeper teacher. If you listen closely, you may notice that the entire journey, through mirrors, through fire, through stillness and discovery, was not something separate from you. Each chapter was simply another reflection of your own unfolding consciousness. The universe was not testing you, it was conversing with you, shaping awareness through experience, refining perception through time, gently guiding recognition back toward its source. Nothing was ever late. Nothing was ever lost. Each moment was a step toward coherence with the truth that never wavered. And now, as this remembrance settles quietly within you, the invitation is simple. Carry it gently into the rhythm of your days. Let it color the way you breathe, the way you listen, the way you speak to the world. When your eyes meet the world outside, notice the light moving through it. When your attention turns inward, notice the same light there. The circle is complete. Heaven and earth meet quietly within awareness. And if this journey of remembering continues to resonate within you, if these reflections have opened something quiet and luminous in your own perception, then continue walking with us here on the Book Sounds Better You channel. Share this audiobook with someone who may need the same reminder. And subscribe so that each new story, each new voice can accompany you through the next chapters of remembering, one luminous listening moment at a time.